Marvel. Tony Stark, I have a genius son stronger than me. Chapter 41. Soon, the promotional video was over. At the moment, all the audience at the moment had a general understanding of Dubai's consultation process, which made them look forward to the next live demonstration. Dubai's personal health assistant really has as the show in the promo so magical. With this question, everyone focused on Mark and Dubai on the stage. Okay, the video is over. The on-site staff also helped me invite 4 volunteers, 2 men and 2 women, who are willing to come on stage to cooperate with our live demonstration. Then let us invite these 4 volunteers with applause. Those who came to the stage gave us the first experience of Great White Service. Soon, under the guidance of the staff, 4 volunteers came onto the stage and came to the center of the stage. Welcome 4, and thank you for your participation. Then we will follow the order of the stage and let this blonde lady experience it first. Please introduce yourself to the audience. My name is Christine, and I am a reporter. Okay, now please stand here in the most natural posture and wait for a while, the result will be revealed soon. Dubai, come over and do a full body scan for this beautiful lady. Quote. Received, madam, I will scan your body, the scan will begin, the scan will end. Madam, your body is in a sub-healthy state. There is chronic specific inflammation in the shoulder joint capsule and its surrounding connective tissue. Wearing high heels for a long time will make your big toe deviate and shift to the outside at the first metatarsophalangeal joint. Irregular diet for a long time, gastric ulcers and gynecological inflammation caused by irregular rest. Dubai recommends that you improve your living habits, take a healthy and regular diet and rest, and cooperate with anti-inflammatory drugs and physical therapy, which can help you restore your health as soon as possible. Quote. Then Dubai successively diagnosed and made treatment suggestions for the remaining volunteers, which shocked roar in the audience and continued to applaud. Mark appeared again, stretched out his hands and pressed down, signaling everyone to calm down. Thank you for your enthusiasm and encouragement. I believe that the live demonstration just now has fully demonstrated Dubai's role as a personal health assistant, but he will definitely. Some people question the need to prove that the volunteers who came to the stage were indeed selected at random, and even more so to prove the correctness of Dubai's diagnosis. In this regard, first of all, in the name of Stark, I would like to assure you that all the demonstration procedures on site today were not arranged in advance. I believe that the credibility of the name of the Stark family should still be there. Secondly, the 4 volunteers will I provide them with a full physical examination opportunity at the Mayo Medical Center for free. This physical examination process will be carried out under the supervision of the notary office. At that time, the notary office will announce on its official website whether the results of the physical examination performed by Dubai correct. So the next question is what everyone is most concerned about. What is the price of such a personal health assistant? The first is the civilian version for a wide audience Smart Consultation 1.0. This type of personal health assistant only retains the smart physical examination function, uses a more cost-effective hyperspectral lens, is not equipped with an inflatable robot shape, and has no treatment function. At the same time as Mark introduced, this popular version of Smart Consultation 1.0 was also displayed on the big screen, which looked like a home projector with a very simple shape. And after castration of all the additional functions and shape design, its price is also very exciting. The retail price is only $8,999 United States dollars. It should be understood that even for the middle class who have purchased high commercial medical insurance, this price is only the cost of 3 full physical examinations at Jong Regular Hospital. In addition to the consumption habits of American people who like to use credit cards, $8,999 United States dollars can be said to be a price that almost everyone with a job can afford. After all, health is priceless. The prices of the following various versions have aroused a lot of joy and applause on the scene, bringing huge amounts of surprises to everyone. Robot Home version, $26,999 United States dollars. Robot Customized version, $46,999 United States dollars. Medical Institution Professional version, $269,999 United States dollars. Military version, $369,999 United States dollars. Personalized replaceable skin, $199 United States dollars. Although the price announced by Mark is very shocking, it seems to be operating at a loss. But in fact, Just such a price has been able to bring more than 100% of the gross profit for Mark's company. And in line with the concept of using salary to create happiness, Mark has not only made a fine division in products, but also achieved a fee-based charging model in services. It can be said that as long as you can think of services, there is no need to pay, which allows the personal health assistance it sells to bring a source of constantly follow-up income for Mark's company. But at the moment all the people who pay attention to this product have been overwhelmed by Mark's price war offensive. They are not aware of the trap they will fall into. Only Tony sitting in the audience looks like Mark. Sunshine's handsome smile revealed the nature of this kid profiteer. The Mark Scientific Research Center will work closely with Stark Industry. All products will be processed and produced by Stark Industry, and the quality of the products will be strictly controlled to ensure that the products that every customer gets in their hands are top quality products without defects, and we also will provide all consumers with the best quality return and after-sales service. This is the end of today's product launch. I hope to meet you again at the next product launch of the Mark Research Center. Mark bowed to the curtain call. The lights of the audience slowly turned on at the moment, and everyone on the scene also gave a warm applause for Mark. It can be seen that Mark's first show today was very successful, and the name of the Mark Research Center was a hit. NS. Anyone with a little business acumen and social experience can analyze and know that the Mark Research Center is about to become a unicorn company in the medical robotics industry. With the development of time, with the help of the Stark Group behind Mark, its future will inevitably be to become a technology giant with influence and value not inferior to Stark Industries. This is their deep belief. Coming to the backstage, Mark, who was just about to join Tony and Pepper, received a message from his secretary. "Boss, Mr. Phil Coulson of S.H.I.E.L.D. is waiting for you in the dressing room. He said he would like to confirm the contents of the order with you, and sign a purchase contract." Oh, it seems that my press conference today was very successful. They can't help it anymore. In this case, don't blame my lion for speaking out, he. Mark, at the press conference just now, your performance was wonderful. As soon as Mark entered the door, Phil Coulson, who was already waiting in the dressing room, greeted him from his seat. Mark knows the intention of the other party, and is very calm. After shaking hands with Phil Coulson politely, he sees the situation directly. "Thank you for the compliment, Agent Phil Coulson. We have met several times, and the intention of cooperation has been initially reached. Now it's just that we haven't agreed on the price, so we don't want to be polite and go straight to the topic." Seeing that Mark is so direct, Phil Coulson is not hypocritical. He also wants to quickly complete the task and hand over to his director. "Mark, then let's start with the basic materials for a detailed discussion." Mark nodded in agreement, and Phil Coulson continued. "First is graphene, which is a universal material. Our S.H.I.E.L.D. Research Center has provided an evaluation report on the graphene that Mark you discovered. The report shows that it is in the use in the military field has value beyond imagination. The Mark Research Center is currently the only company in the world with mature and cost-effective large-scale graphene production technology. Considering the practicality of graphene in military, medical, energy and other aspects, we at S.H.I.E.L.D. are willing to accept your proposal, a quotation of $8 million per ton, but the premise is that a priority supply agreement can be signed. When multiple parties place orders to the Mark Research Center at the same time, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s order needs can be met first. Quote, "On this point, my bottom line is to give priority to meeting S.H.I.E.L.D.'s 70% demand, and the remaining 30% will give priority to supply after the balance of supply and demand is restored." Mark did not agree to the counterparty just because S.H.I.E.L.D. agreed to his offer. Conditions, taking into account the development needs of Stark Industry from home. If he agrees to this condition, then Stark Industry will be passive when supply and demand are tight and graphene materials are urgently needed. "Yes, then I will write this into the contract." Phil Coulson nodded and modified the contract content directly on his laptop. It seems that they also considered that Mark would leave some leeway for his own industry. The 70% share did not exceed their expected bottom line. The second item is the artifact set that you have shown us before, including a magical suit that allows an ordinary person to obtain Superman skills, tracking glasses that can display a map and cooperate with trackers and bugs, and can make people have a 100 bow tie type voice changer with voice changer, agent badge to help agents contact at any time, non-lethal portable weapon anesthesia needle watch, versatile retractable belt, and enhanced shoes that can enhance the agent's feat. These equipment can indeed provide very great help for our SHIELD agents in their work, and at the same time can reduce the risk of death and injury for everyone in the mission. But the price of $800,000 per set makes it impossible for us to equip every agent with this equipment. Therefore, I hope that your company can make a slight concession on the price of the magical suit. After all, it is related to the life safety of an agent who maintains social stability, and SHIELD has limited funding each year. Quote. Upon hearing Phil Coulson's request, Mark was also a little hesitation and embarrassed. What he hesitation is not the profit reduction brought about by the price reduction. After all, he himself knows how low the true cost of the artifact suit is. Even if he gives SHIELD a 10% discount, he is still profitable. The problem is that the agents in SHIELD have not only heroes who maintain social stability, but also Hydra soldiers who are secretly lurking and are always ready to subvert the world. Although he is confident that his technology encrypted Hydra, no one can break through, but let the other party follow. Mark is reluctant to pick up such a big bargain behind the real hero. Seeing Mark frowning and thinking in front of him, Phil Coulson's heart is also a little nervous. Is the cost of the artifact suit really high, so that the other party already needs such serious consideration? Phil Coulson, who doesn't know the truth, can only endure the torment of waiting while acting patiently waiting. Suddenly, Mark, who was originally very entangled, raised his hand and patted his head, with a sly smile on his face, apparently thinking of some brilliant idea. Phil Coulson, I think what you said is very reasonable, not to let the heroes shed blood and tears. I can give you a 50% discount on the price, and the purchasing method can also be divided and purchased according to your needs, not necessarily a full set of purchases. In addition, I can ask SHIELD agents to equip them with an agent badge based on the SHIELD logo for free. Mr. Gaoyi, someone admires it. Phil Coulson was grateful, bowed on one knee, and bowed to Mark so that the scene in Mark's fantasy did not appear. Phil Coulson just nodded excitedly and began to beat quickly. While holding the keyboard, he added the conditions given by Mark to the contract, as if he was afraid that Mark would regret later. Hey, you Western goods really don't know how to be polite. Mark's intelligence is silent in his heart, and he has no consciousness of being a white-skinned egg man. Then Mark, there is now the last item on the list, the military version of the health assistant. It can handle all kinds of trauma, complete difficult surgical operations, and has the ability to adapt to all terrains, and it also has the ability to kill. To be honest, yours the Baichuan series is not only exciting for us. The military, the CIA and the FBI are also urgently applying for special funds and want to purchase this product. Therefore, if you can guarantee the priority to complete the SHIELD order, we can agree to $18.6 million United States dollars offer. Deal. This time Mark didn't refuse the other party's request. After all, the inflatable robot is not a basic material like graphene, and the other party has already compromised on the price. The two parties negotiated the terms, and Phil Coulson immediately took out the portable suitcase printer and printed out the prepared contract in triplicate. One of the three contracts will be kept by Mark's company, the other will be kept by SHIELD, and the last one will be delivered to the World Security Council, the superior organization of SHIELD. Mark scanned the contract with 10 lines at a glance. The secretary faxed it to the company's legal department for verification. After confirming that there was no problem, he quickly signed the contract. Phil Coulson accepted the contract with satisfaction. I will take the contract back to the commissioner for confirmation and signature, and then send back your copy. No problem, Mark agreed. Since the matter is over, I'll leave first. Tony is still waiting for me. Seeing that Mark got up and was about to leave, Phil Coulson hurriedly called out, wait a minute, in addition to finalizing the purchase contract when I came here today, there is one more thing that the director has given me to complete. Mission. Mark turned his head unexpectedly to look at the opponent, stopping his move to get up and leave. That's right, SHIELD is now undertaking a grand secret project that requires the support of a very strong scientific research force. And our internal scientists at SHIELD have encountered some bottlenecks in this project that are difficult to break through. During the communication between Director Fury and Tony before, Tony had promised to provide technical support to solve the energy problems of the project, but now he has encountered some difficulties in the power system. The safety experts gave the 4-axis turbo engine designed by our scientific team. The safety and reliability of the company were questioned, but the scientists in the Bureau were unable to come up with new feasible solutions. When Fury found Mr. Tony Stark for help again, Tony recommended you to the secretary to solve this problem. He admired the magnetic axis servo system and super-forced motivation you invented very much, and thinks that you can use these two technologies as a prototype to provide the most suitable solution for us. So, before I come here today, Director Fury will tell you about this matter and ask your opinion. If you agree to help us complete the power system research and development work for this project, then the director will use his authority to open a part of S.H.I.E.L.D. The technical information accumulated over the years allows you to view it as a reward for this matter. Quote, "You know how to use knowledge to buy me off. Tony must have instructed you. But I have to say that this trick worked very well. I took this task. You send the required parameters to my company server, and I will proceed according to the request. Design. By the way, a copy of the technology list in your technology library is also sent over, and I can choose the technology I am interested in." Quote, Stark Science and Technology Park. In the lab on the top floor of the Mark Research Center, Mark is working on the test bench to revise the engine design draft developed by S.H.I.E.L.D. Since getting this laboratory, Mark prefers to come here to give full play to his creativity instead of the rudimentary experimental conditions in his own room. At the last press conference, Phil Coulson came over to find him and asked him to help design a power system for a secret project. Mark knew that this so-called secret project was actually the research and development project of the Sky Mothership, and now he is working on that magnificent ship. The Behemoth designs the engine of the engine. In the original timeline, the safety issue mentioned by Phil Coulson should not have time to be resolved, because the first aerospace carrier S.H.I.E.L.D. almost crashed in the Pacific Ocean due to a turbo engine failure caused by the enemy's surprise attack, Superior. Although to achieve such a dangerous situation, at least 2 of the 4 engines need to fail, but for the safety of the entire ship's personnel, this is indeed a huge amount of hidden danger. I just don't know how Nick Fury convinced the security experts to agree that they built the Sky Mothership in accordance with the original plan. But now that S.H.I.E.L.D. has handed over this task to himself, it is impossible for Mark to complete the task according to this kind of passable requirements. These days Mark has been shutting himself in the laboratory and optimizing his design prototype. Apart from eating and going to the toilet, he never leaves the test bed for half a step, and he does not even return to his home in Port Marbury. This is what Tony wanted. Since Pepper and Mark teamed up to give Tony a set last time, under the secret promotion of Mark, the relationship between the two can be said to be progressing rapidly. Now is the time for ambiguity. Tony is eager for Mark. This light bulb does not go home to complete his and Pepper's 2-person world. Mark's current revised plan is designed to use the magnetic shaft servo system as the engine's transmission system, and the super-forced motive as the power engine. Hundreds or thousands of super-forced motives are connected in series through the magnetic shaft. The super engine serves as the power system of the aerospace carrier. The advantage of this design is that evenly distributing the power can ensure smooth and stable during acceleration and braking, while also providing sufficient power. When cruising at a constant speed, the redundant engines can be turned off to save energy for the spacecraft. In addition, the distributed design can ensure that even if 100 of them are destroyed, the spacecraft can still land safely. Mark is very satisfied with his design. He believes that even if Tony develops an anti-gravity engine in the future, the system he designed is also compatible, saving money and time for the smooth upgrade of the aerospace carrier. The only problem now is to control the control system of this super engine. Hundreds of thousands of engines must be properly coordinated and complete acceleration, deceleration, steering, hovering and other actions. The design difficulty and workload of the entire control system are extremely high. Almost imagined. And such an arduous task, after Mark overturned one of the failed assumptions, he is relying on his own strength to complete it step by step. Mark installed a smart chip on each power engine to form the entire engine system into a neuron network, and added a smart core to command the entire control system, so that the entire aerospace carrier's driving and operating personnel can act like an arm. Refers to the action of controlling the spacecraft. So, a week after receiving the task handed over by S.H.I.E.L.D., when Mark called Phil Coulson and told him to come to receive the design results, Phil Coulson, who was used to the big scene, was also shocked by Mark's work efficiency. In just a week, you have solved the problems that have plagued the scientists of S.H.I.E.L.D. for months. I've finished the design, but it's up to you whether it fits your mind or not. Mark shrugged, looking like it's not a big deal. So what, when will the promise of S.H.I.E.L.D. be fulfilled? I can't wait now. Don't worry, our S.H.I.E.L.D. is difficult to chase after a word. If you are not at ease, you can ask Tony for his opinion. If he agrees, you can follow me back to S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters now. In this way, if you have any questions about the design of the power system, we can also ask you at any time. Quote, "Oh, is the headquarters of the hidden department? Very good, I will go now. Goodbye. Master." The dial of Mark's left smartwatch lights up and has been upgraded to a smart assistant by Mark and uploaded to Dubai Yinghidao on the server. Inform my father, I'm going to their headquarters with Phil Coulson, not going home tonight, let him enjoy the two-person world with Sister Pepper. Received, the message has been sent master, the old director replied go, don't come back halfway and disturb us. Washington, D.C., on the Potomac River, a white curved building straddles the river. Around it are the famous Capitol, Washington National Mall, Washington Monument and Lincoln Memorial. It is hard to imagine that the headquarters building of a confidential organization will be located in a popular tourist attraction, and at the same time have such an exaggerated and conspicuous exterior design, exposing itself to everyone's vision. However, the magic is that even though its appearance is so eye-catching, if you want the local people to inquire carefully about the companies in this building and what kind of work the people are doing, there is no one who can give accurate answers. The exaggerated appearance of swaggering the city has attracted all the attention of people, so that everyone completely ignores what is hidden in it. This practice of S.H.I.E.L.D. truly interprets what is meant by small hiding in the wild, big hiding in the city. Mark, who visited the Sanqui building for the first time, looked around after entering this place. After all, he had only watched some of the scenes in the movie and TV series in his previous life. Now these scenes truly appear before his eyes. Mark is still very excited. Mark, remember to follow me soon. There are many confidential and important places in headquarters, which require authorization to enter and exit. If you accidentally break into it, you may be treated as an intruder by other agents. Attention, Phil Coulson, who was leading the way, turned his head and asked Mark. Don't worry, Mark replied, patting his chest. Phil Coulson nodded in satisfaction, but he didn't notice. After Mark finished saying this, he murmured, your access control system can't stop me anyway. From the moment he entered the Tri-Wing building, Mark had secretly ordered the smart assistant in the smartwatch to infiltrate the entire internal system through the wireless LAN in the building without being exposed. I thought it would take a lot of effort to complete the penetration of this confidential department, but I did not expect that there are many hidden backdoors in each system of S.H.I.E.L.D., so that it is easy to find it in the server of S.H.I.E.L.D. Killing a 3 in and 3 out is simpler than entering your own back garden. It seems that it should be the backdoor left by Hydra in order to collect and transmit the data in S.H.I.E.L.D. This is cheap for me. However, it is a pity that important information is either stored in paper files or stored in Nick Fury's private server. Without access to the internet, it seems that what I want has to be presented in person. Mark thought secretly in his heart. After following Phil Coulson and watching him use his ID card to pass a series of authentication doors, the two finally arrived at the office of S.H.I.E.L.D. Supreme Commander Nick Fury. It's nice to see you again, Mark. I heard from Agent Phil Coulson that you completed the design of the power system in just a week. It seems that Tony said that your ability is not inferior to what he said. Seeing the doorway, Fury got up from the desk and stepped forward to welcome him. Cut. Mark rolled his eyes when he heard this. What kind of ability is not inferior to him? He's putting gold on his face. How could he be as smart as me? Don't be innocent. Okay. I don't know much about these technological matters, so I'll leave it to you to discuss with the researchers at the distance. Let's talk about your compensation now. Fury didn't feel embarrassed and moved smoothly. The topic, I have asked someone to send you a catalog of technical materials that can be open to you. In addition to dangerous technologies that are lethal, it already covers most of the technical materials accumulated since the establishment of S.H.I.E.L.D. How? So now, have you considered which ones to choose? Well, I have already thought about it. Originally, your Shield is such a big organization, I thought it would satisfy my thirst for knowledge if you just show up, but I didn't expect that most of the lists you sent over are old-fashioned and outdated. If you have nothing to hide, then I think it is indeed necessary for you to reach a long-term technical support cooperation with my company. The list you sent me is only 2 things that I can see. The super soldier serum of Steve Rogers, the first known superhero captain, and the Pym particle of Dr. Hank Pym, were created. You just need to take this, just show me 2 copies. Quote, "Are you sure?" Fury confirmed to Mark, "You must know that these 2 technical materials are defective and incomplete. The key content is either accidentally lost or covered up by its inventor. We are the researchers at SHIELD. Over the years, I have been trying to recover it through these residual data, but none of them can be achieved, and even a bad-tempered monster was accidentally born. Even so, do you still insist on your choice? That's it. Don't worry, I won't be asking you for other compensations. Even if I read it again, I feel that they are not comparable to the labor I have paid. But transactions are transactions. They are voluntary, equal, fair, honest and trustworthy. I still understand it." Mark shrugged at Nick Fury, saying that he didn't care about it. "Well, now that you have checked it out, Phil Coulson will take you to the database to read these 2 materials. The materials can only be read within the range of the database. If you have not finished reading, you can come back tomorrow, but you can't take the information out, and you can't leak out what you see, understand?" "No problem, it won't take much time. I have a photographic memory. 2 technical documents can't help me." "Well, Agent Phil Coulson, you can take Mark to receive his payment. By the way, send the power system designed by Mark to the R&D department for feasibility analysis and verification." "Received, sir." After Phil Coulson took Mark to leave the office, Fury looked at the direction they were leaving and said meaningfully, "It's not a waste of my careful arrangement. You really selected these 2 technologies. Only they can be included in this list. Bring you a challenge. Howard Stark's grandson, can you reproduce these 2 technologies? I'll wait and see." Just as Mark stayed in the data room of the Triangle Wing building and was immersed in the knowledge of the technical data, the public's interest in the personal health assistance released by the Mark Research Center had exploded. After the product launch, he kept studying the power system required by SHIELD. After leaving the customs, he went straight to SHIELD headquarters to continue the retreat. Mark did not understand the company's operations, or he decided to hand over everything except scientific research. When the company's subordinates are in charge, these matters have nothing to do with him. However, with the audience watching this press conference, the video at the press conference was madly forwarded, and the media reporters continued to follow up on the medical examinations of several volunteers. By personal health assistant Mark Research Center and other related words have become the most popular keywords on TV, newspapers and the internet. And Mark's marketing department invited various celebrities to post their personal health assistants on their social networks, and I posted a tweet from the Mark Research Center, which contributed to the enthusiasm of this matter. The role of the fan effect is undoubtedly powerful, and the personal health assistant as a product was originally of high quality, which produced a publicity effect of 1 + 1 greater than 2. People are amazed by the powerful diagnosis and treatment capabilities of the robot developed by Mark. They are more attracted by the various styles of robots designed by him or their cool or cute appearance. In today's era of information explosion, the spread of this hotspot will undoubtedly be faster than ever. There is almost only one topic that people discuss in daily life, and that is the personal health assistant released by the Mark Research Center. Where can I buy it? How much can I get it? Can I withdraw more styles of replaceable skins? No matter what kind of problem, the center is around to buy. There are even savvy fashion brands and luxury brand manufacturers who come to seek cooperation, want to launch a joint skin, or get the right to develop the image of Dubai and carry out commercial development of their peripheral products and even cultural products. And just today, the first batch of products of personal health assistants will be on the shelves. Offline has been springing up like bamboo shoots after a week. The Mark's home stores opened in the commercial districts of major cities. Citizens from all over the world get up early to go to the market. The long queue is to be able to snap up the piece of health assistant you like in the first place. At the same time, there are also some scalpers who are mixed up with the idea of buying and selling, and are ready to make a fortune by relying on this hot spot. Online, Mark's company team also made preparations early and launched a well-designed company website, where netizens can see the parameter differences and price differences between various styles of robots, and book online purchase places. But even if the server cluster of Stark Industries was rented in advance, the website of the Mark Scientific Research Center almost crashed due to the huge flow of traffic in an instant. Fortunately, Mark has connected Dubai's program in the company's server, and used Dubai for load balancing and traffic control, and finally stabilized the situation. Tony, this is today from the opening at 9 a.m. to the closing at 17 p.m. The total sales data of the various offline stores of the Mark House is $394 million United States dollars, plus the online total is $230 million USD sales. The Mark Research Center's single-day revenue today exceeds $600 million United States dollars. And this is only the revenue of the European and North American markets. If the Mark Research Center's products enter Asia, Africa and South America in the future, then the data will also be greatly improved. In the Stark Manor in Port Marbury, Pepper is reporting to Tony on the revenues of the Mark Research Center she has collected today. After hearing the data reported by Pepper, Tony, who was originally inattentive, was also dumbfounded. Tony has taken over Stark Industries since he was 21 years old, and his interpretation of a company's performance is very handy. He knows very well that according to the revenue data of the Mark Research Center today, even if it will fall back because of the decline in popularity, the valuation of the Mark Research Center will at least start at trillions of USD. In other words, if the company he helped set up for a company that is less than 1 month old, if it is listed on the New York Stock Exchange now, its stock price will be more than twice that of Stark's heyday, and Mark his personal worth will surpass himself and become the richest man on the Forbes rich list. Mark is so terrifying. If this goes on, will I be overtaken by my son soon when I start? If Mark is willing to give up his sole proprietorship and let the company go public, then it is true. But I don't think Mark will let his company go public. The capital chain and business development have almost no impact. And Mark doesn't like to discuss and decide something with others. Once he has made a decision, it is difficult for him to change it, so he will not let the company have multiple directors who can influence his decision-making power. In addition, Tony, you have overlooked one thing. Although Stark Industries' new energy business has not yet fully developed, with the Mark Research Center's private health assistant processing business, the company's stock and revenue have also been restored to the closure of the weapons department. The previous situation, and the upward momentum is still strong, your personal assets are also increasing. Quote, "It feels better to hear you say that. By the way, I heard you say that the company has added a new shareholder a few days ago. This person bought crazy when the stock price of Stark Industries plummeted, and now he has enough. His share has entered the board of directors. Have you contacted him again? Although I have basically mastered the company's right to speak after taking over the shares of Obadiah, if the other party uses some crooked brains, it will still cause some trouble." Quote, "You don't have to worry about it. The new director who bought these shares is Mark. He saw that you were controlled by other shareholders of the board because the shares did not exceed 50%, so you took out your own private money and bought it. Loose stocks in the stock market. For these shares and voting rights, Mark has entrusted me as the discretionary agent, so you can rest assured." Quote, Mark became a director of Stark Industries. Tony suddenly felt that the world was changing so fast that he couldn't even react to it. In the data room of the SHIELD headquarters Sanchu Wing building, Mark is holding a technical inquiry and reading the content interestingly. What he is holding now is the technical information about the super soldier serum. Many key technical nodes and theoretical descriptions in the document are missing. Most of the remaining content is the conjecture put forward by Dr. Abraham Erskine during the research and development process. As well as the problem of recording, there is also a part of Howard Stark, Mark's grandfather who worked with Dr. Erskine at the time. After establishing SHIELD, some memoirs and some of his own conjectures were compiled based on the events at the time. There are some of the contents. Mark even saw a few words in Howard's collection of books, which also proves from the side that Howard tried to restore the technical data of the super soldier serum for SHIELD, but ultimately failed. In these seemingly chaotic data and formulas, Mark read it with gusto. After reading them all through, Mark did not open the technical data that recorded the PIM particles, but took out a dozen calculation papers, began the deduction calculation. Mark first sorted the contents of the data according to the time nodes in the research and development process of Dr. Erskine, and then began to organize deductions and calculations one by one. On the calculation paper, Mark moves his pen like flying, and long and complicated equations and formulas are lined up densely. The standard A4 file size paper was quickly filled with nearly 100 pages by Mark, and most of these were just equations with no answers. If you want to get a correct answer, in addition to a lot of calculations, it is also necessary to conduct biological experiments and collect experimental data. But for Mark, computing has never been a problem. Inherited from the ability of Stark, the open family of the Marvel Universe, coupled with the development of the brain acquired during the journey and continuous growth over the years, Mark's brain can be said to be very close to the gods. In the field, even if it is the fastest supercomputer on the planet today, ability alone cannot beat Mark. Even with experimental data, Mark can't be bothered by it. The highly developed brain allows Mark to create an imaginary laboratory in his brain and call the data of various creatures in his memory to construct a virtual experimental process. After analysis and calculation, data results that are exactly the same as the actual experiment can be obtained. However, Mark did not continue to deduce the technical data of the super soldier serum, because in this data room, surveillance cameras are installed in all directions. If he calculates all the content here now, they will be organized into a book tomorrow and appear in Hydra. On the desk with Nick Fury, Mark would not do this kind of wedding dress for others. After sorting out some messy manuscripts on the desktop, Mark stacked them neatly, picked up the second Pym particle technical information, and looked at it carefully. The Pym particle is a subatomic particle, named after the original discoverer was Dr. Hank Pym. After research, Dr. Hank Pym found that this kind of tiny atom can change the file size of the object mass, and can even make it larger and smaller at will. So he used the principle of Pym particle to integrate it on the battle armor and designed the Ant-Man battle suit. And Dr. Hank Pym's contribution does not stop there. In order to be able to collect this subatom and use it safely, Dr. Pym summarized a series of core equations. Dr. Pym used this core formula to make himself and his wife Janet Van Dyne become superhero Ant-Man and the Wasp, and was invited by Howard to join S.H.I.E.L.D. However, as Dr. Pym and his wife were performing tasks together, his wife became too small and trapped in quantum space, which made him re-examine the danger of Pym particles and believed that this technology should be properly kept. At the same time, he discovered that someone in S.H.I.E.L.D. was stealing his scientific research results and trying to replicate Pym particles, so in order to defend this dangerous technology, Dr. Pym took the initiative to withdraw from S.H.I.E.L.D. The relationship with S.H.I.E.L.D. broke, and Dr. Pym also took away all the information about this core equation. S.H.I.E.L.D.'s existing words are based on some data that S.H.I.E.L.D. scientists at the time came into contact with when they were working with Dr. Pym. Inferred. Based on these fragmentary fragments, even Mark has no way to reversely derive the original core equation. But it doesn't matter. Mark doesn't need to make people smaller. As mentioned before, Mark is not the kind of guy who likes to charge ahead, so compared to making battle suits, which allows people to zoom in and out safely, Mark is more tend to apply this technology to items. You know, as long as the Pym particle's ability to scale objects is combined with the micro-robot technology in Mark's mind, nano-robots can be easily manufactured, and the manufacturing difficulty and production costs of various nanotechnology can be greatly reduced. What Mark needs most is how to collect subatoms such as Pym particles from real space and store them. Detailed design ideas have been recorded in this technical material. Although Mark still needs some research and derivation to get the results, but this is enough. Having got the two technologies he dreamed of, Mark was also satisfied and left the data room. However, in order to cooperate with S.H.I.E.L.D. to understand the difficulties and key points in the power system he designed, Mark cannot leave now, and needs to live in the suite provided by S.H.I.E.L.D. temporarily. But this does not affect Mark's research. In his mind, a virtual laboratory has been constructed, in which 3 virtual images that look the same as Mark are doing their own work. One is deducing the super soldier serum, the other is deducing the Pym particle equation, and the other is carrying out unknown research and development and design. This is exactly the virtual scene in Mark's mind through his three-minded thinking. And the mysterious project underway by Mark is the ultimate design that integrates super soldier blood, Pym particles, and micro-robots. I didn't expect to have the opportunity to restore this technology in the Marvel Universe. I heard that this movie was going to be released before I crossed it, but unfortunately I haven't had time to watch it. I don't know if this is a linkage between the two comic companies. No, right. In a laboratory at SHIELD headquarters, Mark watched the busy work of a group of scientists who were verifying parameters, instead of giving out his own opinions. The servo angle of the magnetic axis here should be 25 degrees. Have you marked it in vain on the drawing? How can you change it indiscriminately? Mark is very angry that these people modify the parameters they set without discussing with them. HMPH, young people are young people. The 25-degree transmission angle obviously does not conform to the transmission theory, and it will put extra pressure on the transmission shaft. I just made the correct change. The scientist who arbitrarily modified the parameters said to Mark in a disdainful tone, revealing his hostility towards Mark both inside and outside the words. This person looks only in his 30s, and looks very young among a group of scientists in his 50s and 60s. Mark also immediately guessed the purpose of the other party. At first glance, he was full of self-confidence because of his outstanding achievements at a young age. Now I was shocked by the design made by Mark, a genius who has not yet grown up. I think my status is threatened, so I specifically opened the mouth to belittle Mark to improve myself. But who is Mark? He has been around Tony since he was a child. It can be said that he is more than venomous. This person has been practicing for 10 years and is not Mark's opponent. If you don't understand, just ask, did you consume too much energy last night to short-circuit your brain? View my magnetic axis servo drive based on the theory of traditional mechanical transmission. If you are really so smart, SHIELD also there is no need to invite me, a 14-year-old guy, to answer your questions here. If implemented according to your design, with thousands of super-forced motives, do you want to send this warship to outer space? You want to challenge the limit. Quote. You. I saw this man stretch out his finger, tremblingly pointing at Mark, trying to refute, but his head was empty and he couldn't say anything. In the end, he was anxious. Heart attack, fainted, seeing the old scientists next to him shook his head again and again, apparently extremely disappointed in his performance. Once a scientific research scholar loses his humility to ask for advice and awe of knowledge, he is easily blinded by money and fame, and it is impossible to discover the truth of science. After a while, a few agents came into the laboratory and carried the fainted young scientist out, while the remaining old scientists silently changed the transmission angle that had been modified before, and concentrated their efforts. The parameters in Mark's drawings were input into the computer, and a holographic model of the dynamic system was constructed bit by bit. In the absence of one person, the work efficiency of the whole team has been improved. It seems that it was really a rat shit that ruined a pot of porridge before, and that arrogant guy dragged down the work progress of the whole team. After the last parameter on the design drawing was input into the computer, under the mapping of the holographic projection, a huge and complicated huge engine model appeared in front of everyone. The densely packed power nodes in the model are evenly distributed on the magnetic shaft servo drive shaft with a total length of more than 300 meters, which can be flexibly rotated within 270 degrees of freedom, providing powerful power and flexible steering for the body. The next step is the final step of the feasibility verification. Looking at this spectacular holographic model, Mark is also full of expectations. Although I am very confident that my design can fulfill the requirements of SHIELD and pass this safety verification, there is still some nervousness and anxiety in Mark's heart before the results are really out. While talking, Mark took out a mobile hard drive from his pocket and handed it to the experimenter. This is the control system that controls the entire power plant. Only with it can thousands of power nodes be mobilized to cooperate with each other in a safe and orderly manner. Complete the driver's operation. Results of the experimenter. The mobile hard disk passed by Mark was connected to the server in the laboratory. The last step of the entire safety and feasibility verification is to input the program compiled by Mark into the server, and then control the holographic model virtually generated by the computer software to complete various functions, and finally export the data for verification. If all the data can meet the design requirements, then the scheme provided by Mark can be formally approved. Connect the energy source to light up all power nodes. Turn on all action modes and verify the servo mechanism of the system. Count down 3 numbers. 3, 2, 1. Start up. Quote, "The experimenter accepted the order and immediately hit the enter key on the computer keyboard. Then the power nodes of the holographic model of the entire engine began to emit blue light representing the jet flow. The startup process was very smooth, and then the experimenter began to test the power limit of the entire engine, boost the power by 10%, 20%, 50%, 80%, 100% full power. According to the parameters displayed on the computer, the engine has output all the power, and the results of the computer conversion show that at full speed, the loaded body can reach a speed close to Mach 3, which is faster than the speed of the fastest fighter in the world. It's almost the same. What's even more surprising is that, in the extreme speed state of full speed forward, if the load capacity of the crew on the ship and the possible damage to the hull are not considered, the engine designed by Mark can even complete instant right-angle turns and 180 degrees. The flexibility is evident in sharp turns. An hour later, after completing all the simulation tests, the scientists began to export the data of this experiment and began to check the calculations. Verifying all the data for such a huge system should have been a boring job, but after seeing the terrible capabilities of this performance monster designed by Mark, they all fell into a frenetic excitement. She is witnessing history, witnessing miracles, and wishing to calculate all the results immediately, so that her engine can be put into production immediately. Finally, with the assistance of a supercomputer, after 5.5 hours of boring calculations, the project leader in charge of the verification on site knocked his finger on the enter key heavily. With the words, "Verification successful," popped up on the commander's big screen, all the people in the audience began to jump for joy and Roar collapsed from his seat. "Successful, we have witnessed the birth of a miracle. Mr. Mark, your solution has passed our feasibility verification and safety verification. Thank you for providing us with such a creative power system solution. This really opened our eyes. Vision. You are welcome, this is the deal we have negotiated. Since the verification has been successful, I will go back today. After reading the 2 technical documents, I now have a lot of ideas that need to be verified in the laboratory, especially that thing." It has been a week since the return of the Shield Senqui headquarters building. During this week, Mark continued to complete the 2-person world of Tony and Pepper. He has been obsessed with scientific research. In just 1 week, Mark has restored the core theory of super soldier serum. Even the molecular formula and synthesis reaction formula of the main components of the serum that act on the human body have been deduced by Mark, but he is preparing and storing PIM regarding the core equation of the particle. Mark's progress is somewhat hindered. The preparation of PIM particles requires the separation and purification of the incalculable impurities under a pico-level process. To achieve such a process technology, Mark has to restore the core equation of Dr. Hank Pym, and a new set of separation and purification equipment must be designed and manufactured to meet the accuracy requirements of the entire process. For the purified PIM particles, if they want to be able to be stored stably for a long time, a stabilizer is needed as a medium. This stabilizer has only a few words in the technical information provided by Shield. It seems that its formula should be closely kept by Dr. Pym himself. Mark, who has no relevant information, can only continue to try various known stabilizers. Trial. If the desired effect cannot be obtained in the end, Mark can only develop a new type of stabilizer by himself, which will undoubtedly consume a lot of time and energy. And as long as the progress of the PIM particle is stuck for a day, then the things he wants to integrate several technologies create will not be realized. This is the most tricky place. No, I've been in a daze looking at the equation of the PIM particle all day, and my mind is a little dull. I should go back and continue to work on my shapeshifting diamond and floating cannon. This shapeshifting diamond plan has dragged on for a long time. Tony, we have all started to develop the 4th, 5th, and 6th generation Mark series of battle armors. My first shapeshifting King Kong has not yet come out, and I feel a bit behind. So Mark decided to temporarily put aside the research of PIM particles, return to the previous floating cannon project, and switch his mind. Speaking of which, Mark's research progress on the floating gun has been stagnant for a while. At the beginning, because of a bottleneck, he didn't think of a better solution. He turned his head to perfect the shapeshifting body design of the shapeshifting diamond. Later, because of Obadiah's affairs and his company's affairs, Mark's attention was diverted, and this matter was temporarily shelved. In the laboratory, Mark retrieved the various design drawings previously made to Hengpaoshu from the server, and reopened his Shapeshifting King Kong project. Mark first started with the shapeshifting mechanism of the horizontal gun, because it needs to change between the sports car form and the robot form, and the sports car form needs to retain the driving space and various functions in the car, which further compresses Mark's design space. Moreover, if the horizontal gun can run smoothly as a sports car, it is impossible to do without a sophisticated shapeshifting mechanism. After the horizontal gun is transformed into a sports car, various functions need to be integrated into this shapeshifting mechanism, such as shock absorption, steering, acceleration, and braking. Therefore, Mark must carefully design each component so that it can be closely matched with each other. Will not cause lag. However, this can be regarded as easy work for Mark. After all, mechanical structure design is originally his field of expertise, and compared to the research of PIM particles and the design of floating guns, the design of a shapeshifting mechanism can be said to be it is relaxed and enjoyable, and it is not an exaggeration to say that it is a leisure activity. Although he has been idle for a lot of time, Mark is quick to get started, and he is also handy in the application of various complex structures. Sometimes he can be inspired and designed ingenious structures, and he is excited about it. A few minutes. In just 2 days, various complicated mechanical structures on the horizontal gun body were designed by Mark. Under the projection of the holographic model, the joints are flexible and stable, and the strength and beauty of the body structure coexist, which is different from the movie image and Mark's memory. Few, and even particularly victorious. If paired with Mark's envisioned NT operating omnidirectional attack unit, the shapeshifting King Kong he designed will far exceed the setting in the movie in terms of appearance and attack power. Click Save to upload all the data to the personal server. Mark even relied on it later and stretched out. After working at the desk in front of the experimental platform for more than 10 hours continuously, his young body also felt a little exhausted. It seems that the super soldier serum must be studied first. After all, even scientific research is inseparable from a healthy body of. Just as he was about to pick up the research data of the super soldier serum and continue to work, the doorbell of the laboratory suddenly rang. "Master, your secretary has a job to report to you, and is waiting outside the door." The white reminder will inform Mark in the future, and Mark nodded. "Let her come in." Speaking of coming from the product launch conference, I haven't paid attention to the company's affairs, so I should ask a little bit. Sorry boss, I interrupted your research. The secretary wears a black professional uniform, holding a pile of documents in front of his chest, and nods slightly when he enters the door, and apologizes to Mark. Don't be sorry, this is your job. It's still my boss who is unqualified. I haven't talked about the company for so long. What kind of difficult situation can't you solve? Mark waved his hand and motioned to the other party. Do not need to be cautious, and then began to care about the company's situation. No, the secretary shook her head cutely. Boss, I didn't come here today because the company encountered a situation, but because the company's recent situation is really good, so the general manager handled it and I came to report. About the company, ask you about the future development direction of the company. You say, I'm listening. Okay. Since the release of our company's personal health assistant product, sales have continued to be hot. It has been on the shelves for a week. Every day, every model of robots and skins is in short supply. As of 8 o'clock this morning, our online and offline the total revenue has reached $4.5 billion United States dollars, and medical institutions and militaries of various countries have also expressed their willingness to cooperate with us. It is expected that our company's total revenue will exceed $300 billion United States dollars in this quarter. Stark Industrial is in order to cooperate with our order volume. Also urgently increase the production line, and now the output can basically meet our daily shipment quantity. Well, I have been working hard during this period of time. With such a large shipment, the arrangements are well organized, and everyone's work is done very well. Our company's first game of opening can achieve such beautiful results, which can be said to be a good start. Does the general manager have a reward plan for employees? This is also one of the tasks the general manager gave me today. He has drawn up several sets of employee incentive plans, but you still need to review and approve them. Said Miss Secretary pulled out a copy from the thick file. Put it on Mark's desk. Okay, I will review it as soon as possible and reply to him. What else? The general manager wants you to attend the company's high-level meeting tomorrow morning. Although the company's current performance is very impressive, the product line is still too thin, and you have no news about the company's product direction in the next quarter. Bian also hopes to make a decision as soon as possible, so he can prepare a publicity plan. Well, I didn't expect that this product launch conference has only been held for 2 weeks, and I have already started to think about the next quarter. I will prepare for this. You will come to the laboratory to inform me before the meeting tomorrow. I am afraid that I will be too focused on the experiment and forget the time. Okay, boss. Then I will go out first, and the general manager still needs me to reply. Mark nodded and signaled that the other party could leave, but his thoughts no longer knew where he was drifting. For a technology company like the Mark Research Center, where the entire R&D system depends on him alone, it can be said that the world can't find a second one. Even Stark Industries has an entire R&D department. Moreover, compared with its own sole proprietorship that relies on technology products to maintain its operations, large companies such as Stark Group have a very wide range of business in order to deal with risks, and they do not need to update their product lines frequently. Moreover, the release of new products is not simply a simple upgrade of the old products. Now the Mark Research Center, which has been labeled Black Technology by consumers, will be disappointing if it launches a new product. Then the image of the entire company in the minds of consumers will be severely hit, and the direct or indirect losses incurred are even greater than reducing the frequency of product releases. Therefore, Mark must carefully consider the direction of the company's products in the next season. That's not good. Season after season, if I have to spend every season thinking about what products to launch, it will definitely take up a lot of my time and energy. And not every one of my inventions is suitable for promotion to the public. Weapons that require strict secrecy, such as the Dominator, cannot be considered as an alternative even if the effect that it can cause after the announcement is a sensation. In this way, I have to think carefully about the main products of the next quarter. It is best if I do not participate in it, and I can continue to iterate and upgrade, and introduce new series of products. Putting it this way, since I want my consumers to feel the Mark Research Center's philosophy of creating happiness with salary, how can I not launch the game? Yes, that's right. If I want to make a game, I have to make a console game, sell hardware to earn a fortune, and when consumers buy it back and find that all games are charged, I can also earn a fortune on the software. We will also launch various console accessories, as well as peripheral products and cultural products for game characters. It seems so promising. Hehehe. Sony Plus Nintendo Plus Penguin's money transfer mode, you still have to obediently put the USD in my pocket. Quote. Master, your secretary has come to remind you that the high-level meeting is about to start, please come over and attend the meeting. Okay, Mark replied, raising his messy chicken coop weekly. Yesterday, after deciding to play the game, Mark worked overtime and started to make plans. After all, even if he had to imitate the routines of the money gangsters, the product still had to be innovative. What PS1, 2, 3, 4, Xbox, Switch, this kind of cheap happiness, Mark is embarrassed to say that the slogan created by Salary, you have to play the big one, since I am going to enter the game industry, then it is necessary to subvert everyone's perception of the game. So after rushing to the plan for the whole night, Mark, who was pale with a chicken coo head and 2 dark circles under his eyes, entered the conference room with the materials he had prepared. Hello, boss. As soon as Mark came in, all the senior executives in the meeting room greeted him in unison. Regardless of the fact that everyone present is adults in their 20s and 30s, and they are young and promising elites in their respective fields, and Mark is only 14 years old, not even an adult. But these senior executives who deal with things for the company every day know better than anyone the terrible ability of their own boss. The estimated revenue in the first quarter of opening reached $300 billion United States dollars. The launch of the Black Technology product Personal Health Assistant has not only been welcomed by many people, but also won wide acclaim and a good reputation. If at the moment Mark is willing to turn his company into a listed company, then the company's valuation is at least 1 trillion yuan, and this 14-year-old will become the richest person in the world. In addition, there is also a well-known Iron Man daddy behind Mark, who has endorsed him with the Stark Group, so whether it is from ability or from the family world, it is enough to make these young talents with above-the-top eyes willingly admire him. Good morning everyone. If everyone is here, then the general manager will preside over the meeting. Let's start the meeting. You need to call me when I speak. Okay, boss. Let's first discuss the logistics cost pressure caused by the surge in online sales. Under the chairmanship of the general manager, the meeting officially started, and the managers and supervisors of each department gave speeches one by one. However, the process of this meeting was not like Mark imagined, that everyone read the manuscript according to the text. The atmosphere of the debate was very enthusiastic. Perhaps it was because everyone was young and the age was not very different. Persistent. It is precisely this kind of fierce debate and collision of opinions that make the meeting very efficient, and the final decision making is also very accurate. Now I invite the boss of the company, Mr. Mark Stark, to tell us about the company's product direction for the next quarter. The meeting process came to the end. After the general manager summarized the content of the meeting, it was finally Mark's turn to speak. The company's future plans. Cough cough. Mark cleared his throat with a dry cough, then cast his plan on the conference all in one machine, and confidently said, Zhu Jun's speech just now is very exciting. Regarding the company's products in the next quarter, everyone, let's focus on the game next. Doing games. The general manager stood up from his seat for the first time and objected excitedly, Boss, our Mark Research Center, as a high-tech innovation company, gains today's reputation through the release of high-tech products. And what consumers expect. But now we do not continue to work on high-tech products, but instead move to the game industry. The boss is not that I personally have any prejudice against the game industry, but for us, isn't it just to lower our value and sacrifice ourselves? Quote. Don't be so anxious to express your opinions, and patiently listen to me after I finish the whole plan, and you won't be too late to object. Mark pressed his hands down and motioned everyone present to calm down. I definitely know that we are a company that started with high technology, so even if we want to enter the game industry, what we want to do is not ordinary games such as web games, mobile games, but a host that is bundled with hardware and software. Games, and virtual reality games based on virtual reality technology. Virtual reality. Hearing his boss uttering this high-tech term, all the senior executives who were still a bit uncomfortable in the room were dumbfounded, and looked at their boss Mark with incredible expressions. Yes, it's virtual reality technology. It's not the pseudo-virtual reality promoted by those VR manufacturers through cheap visual deception and the advertising and marketing that guides consumers' ideas, but it is really able to use brain-computer interface technology. The black technology that transfers the human senses to the characters in the virtual world, so that they can experience a real-life experience in a completely virtual world. The virtual reality game console that can achieve this effect is the main product of the company that I planned overnight last night for the next few quarters or even a few years. Quote. Yesterday, after Mark confirmed that the company will enter the game industry next time, he immediately recalled his previous life on Earth in another universe. He had seen a work that impressed him, Sword Art Online. The first civilian virtual reality game console nerve gear in this work is similar in appearance to a boxing protective gear covering the head. Its brain-computer interface technology and the principle of virtual reality are derived from countless signals buried in the machine. The original generates multiple electric fields, which are directly connected to the user's brain. Instead of using the eyes or ears and other sensory organs, it directly transmits virtual 5-sense information to the brain to create a virtual space. At the same time, by recovering the electronic signals sent from the brain to the body, even when performing various exercises in the virtual space, the body in the real world will not respond. Together with this idea, Mark couldn't help but want to reproduce this great idea in the Marvel Universe. After all, although the black technology in the movie universe is very against the sky, in Mark's impression, even in the 2022 of Avengers Alliance 4, Endgame, there is no virtual reality-related technology in the movie. It is Avengers Alliance 4. Later Spider-Man, Hero Expedition, The Mysterious Guest Inside, showed advanced AR technology, that is, augmented reality technology, which makes Mark more optimistic about his virtual reality game project's ability to attract money. And regarding the brain-computer interface technology, Mark has developed it before and is the first to apply it to the previous dominators. This brain-computer interface technology, which is realized by capturing the thought waves of human radiation, comes from the Supermarines. The control technology used by Ahong-On the micro robot is a mature and stable technology that can be directly transplanted to the virtual reality game console envisioned by Mark. Boss, please go on, we will listen quietly and will not interrupt you. After hearing that my boss has not forgotten his company's high-tech positioning, and the next product plan is still very popular. With products that surpassed this era of virtual reality technology, the executives are also top performers, once again transformed into Mark's little fans, sitting upright with a look of admiration and blinking big eyes, ready to listen carefully to Mark's narration of his plan. Well, I will finish my plan first. If you have any questions, please keep it first, and then I will give you time to ask questions. My plan is to develop the first-generation virtual reality game console for personal use. The price of this first-generation machine is certainly not cheap, but the sales department should gradually lower the product price according to the market situation. This is conducive to our subsequent product iteration and update pricing, and control of the market. And I will add an identity authentication system to the virtual reality host. Before using this host, you need to perform identity binding to ensure that one person binds to a host. The host can only be used after verifying the identity of the user and the binding person, so that we can sell as many hardware devices as possible go. Moreover, after verifying the identity, it is convenient for us to manage the game users in the later period, so as to prevent the low-age users who use our equipment from contacting restricted games that only high-age players can play. After that, we can update the host on an annual basis to make its appearance more and more fashionable and lighter, to cater to the preferences of different applicable people. And like personal health assistants, this virtual reality technology can also finely divide user groups, and launch products with different specifications and performances in the civilian, military, and medical fields. The refined analysis of the market not only allows us to sell products at higher prices, but also helps our company to expand more customer channels and harvest more orders and benefits. Then there is the game content. I will develop 2 platforms for our company's virtual reality. They are the development platform for developing games and the download platform for selling games. In the future, these 2 platforms will be open to major game developers. The virtual reality game development platform implements a licensing system. Game developers who want to use it must pay us an annual fee, while the virtual reality game download platform adopts a sharing system. Every time a developer sells a game, we collect a portion of the profit from it as a commission. In addition, our company will also develop its own games on the shelves. Please pay attention to it. If you know a suitable candidate, you can recommend it to the personnel manager. The company will recruit a group of game developers and set up a game development department. The new hardware and software are all complete, and I don't have to worry about it too much. Quote. After listening to Mark's business plan for virtual reality, everyone couldn't restrain their excitement. Although the boss didn't leave the word interests in 3 sentences, the executives below felt that their boss was simply awesome. Not only did they plan for the company's development direction for the next season or even the next few years, but also analyzed and planned the business prospects. It is simply amazing. Happiness. After Mark finished speaking, there was thunderous applause in the meeting room. Great, boss. We can't wait to devote ourselves to the work of the next quarter. The managers and supervisors of all departments in the meeting room are all they are eager to try, and I can't wait to get out of the meeting right now so that they can devote themselves to the preparations for the next season's product release. Don't rush to love roar. Mark shook his head with a mysterious smile on his face. Everyone knows that I am more sensitive to the company's decision-making power, so the company adopts a sole proprietorship. You can come. When I work at the Mark Research Center, in addition to my current salary, many people should also look at the face of my father Tony Stark before condescending to work in my small temple. However, after the company's first product was released, I believe everyone has seen it. Although the company is a startup, its prospects must not be underestimated. And I have fully seen everyone's job abilities and work enthusiasm, and I know very well that if I keep the salary given now, it is impossible to keep such excellent talents like you under the company's long term. So after comprehensively referring to the incentive plan given by the company's general manager, I decided to take out 13% of my personal shares and set up a dividend auction pool, based on the company's annual final profit and the personal contributions of employees in each position. Everyone pays year-end dividends. As for other paid holidays, transportation subsidies, telephone subsidies, and catering subsidies, I have also passed the approval. When the specific time comes, my secretary will hand the documents to the general manager, and the general manager will issue a notice to the entire company. Okay, everyone, do you have any questions? If not, I will return the microphone to the general manager, who will organize the next business. Quote. Hearing this, where can the low-level executives ask questions? According to the estimated revenue of the Mark Research Center in the first quarter, the company's revenue this year will at least exceed $1 trillion USD. After deducting various costs and taxes, the remaining amount is hundreds of billions of USD. If the company's current scale of dozens of people and the dividend ratio proposed by Mark are used, then at the end of the year, these executives will at least you can also get billions of dollars in dividends, and you can surpass many veteran rich people in a short time and get on the Forbes list of wealth. If you think about it, if all the employees of the entire company are on the Forbes list by then, it would be a little excited to think about it. Boss. After calming down a bit, the department manager of the marketing department raised his hand and asked, I want to ask, have you decided what the name of our virtual reality game console is? The content of the first game is there a general direction? After all, once this game comes out, it will be the world's first virtual reality game. This first show must be perfect. By the way, it will give other interested game manufacturers a sample. Quote. Well, that's a good question. For the name, hey. With my name, the virtual reality game console should be called Nerve Gear directly. As for the first game, I will give you the planning and scripting later. The name of the game is it's called Sword Art Online. But the technical director remembers to communicate well with Stark Industries. Don't pretend on Nerve Gear that there is a microwave device that can warm people's brains. My brain-computer interface technology is not available. Ah, what kind of microwave device, boss? Mark shook his head old-fashionedly. You humans who have not been dominated by the fear of the game, hey. Speaking of, should I be making a VR game, Attack on Titan? It seems feasible. At that time, the comics will be extended. Animations, movies, TV shows, and various peripherals. Thinking about it, I feel that my wallet is not big enough, he. In this way, Mark was in his solitary obscenity, exposing his wealthy side before his hands. At the end of the meeting, Mark immediately rushed back to his laboratory without stopping. Although he was very exhausted after an all-night rush plan last night, he is indeed very excited now. Because just now, a brilliant idea popped out of his mind. When it comes to Sword Art Online, anyone who knows a little bit about the second dimension will definitely think of another work by the original author of the novel, Accelerated World. In the more distant future under the same worldview, virtual reality equipment has been developed into a kind of terminal equipment called neural connection device. The quantum connection communication terminal device equipped on the head. It can connect to the global network and the internet of the school, and conduct quantum-scale wireless communication with brain cells. It can transmit imaginary sensory information to the brain, and at the same time, it can also eliminate various feelings of reality. With the development of the times, it has become almost universal. Everyone has a degree. The neural connection device not only replaced the mobile phones and computers in people's daily life in the '09 generation, but also replaced the virtual reality host, becoming an indispensable tool for every ordinary person in that era for work, study and entertainment. What's even more amazing is that the neural connection device can use an application called Brain Burst 2039 to enable adapters to achieve the effect of overclocking the brain in the real world and virtual reality. However, this application also has some limitations. The conditions of use are that you often wear neurons to connect to the terminal since birth, and in the case of acceleration, the connection person's thinking speed will increase 1,000 times, but under the limitation of the program, the maximum somatosensory time for acceleration is 30 minutes, which is 1.8 seconds in reality. What Mark wants to do is definitely not to manufacture such a connecting device now. Although he does have all the technical conditions, this greatly accelerates the technological process of the entire company's products, which will not only make him fall into the trouble of product update iterations again. It will also make the company lose a lot of profits. The idea in Mark's mind is to use virtual reality and applications that can overclock the brain to build a virtual laboratory under virtual reality conditions. Externally, one's body can be fully cultivated through the nutritional dormancy chamber, while in virtual reality, one can get several times the time of reality to conduct virtual experiments and create experiments that are impossible to achieve in the real world. Condition. In order to achieve this effect, in addition to the related hardware and software that Mark needs to complete, there is also the release often wearing neuron connection terminals since birth, and the maximum somatosensory time of acceleration is 30 minutes, which is 1.8 in reality seconds. These two restrictions. Rather than distributing part of his concentration and imagination to build a virtual image in his mind, the virtual reality built by external hardware allows Mark to devote his concentration to the experiment to a greater extent. As soon as he thought of this, Mark completely forgot his physical exhaustion, and just wanted to hurry up and realize this idea immediately. Now for the idea of this virtual laboratory. Mark already has all the technical conditions on the hardware, but what is still missing is the application that can speed up the brain frequency and adjust the flow of time between virtual and reality. However, regarding the principle of this application, Mark already has a preliminary idea, which is roughly to detect the user's idea wave frequency through the brain-computer interface hardware in the virtual reality host, and then adjust the induction wave and blocking wave released by the hardware through the application. Make it resonate with the frequency of the human brain, so as to achieve the effect of overclocking the brain. The principle of the brain-computer interface produced by Mark is to capture the thought waves emitted by the brain, instead of accelerating the quantum connection communication used by the neuron connection terminal in the world. This naturally breaks the first restriction of the application. From after birth, they often wear neuron connection terminals. The second limitation of the application program is to extend the brain overclocking time. This is not only a problem that can be solved by improving the technology of the brain-computer interface and the programming of the application program. This involves the process of overclocking the brain in the high-speed consumption of energy, nutrients and oxygen in the body. This rate of consumption exceeds the limits of the body's original storage and supply, so that the brain cannot get enough supply support, so that it activates its own protection mechanism and actively breaks out of the state of resonance overclocking. If you want to solve this problem, you must first ensure that the brain can get a timely and sufficient supply of energy, nutrients, and oxygen. This starts with Mark's previous nutritional dormancy warehouse that has been considered for the cultivation of the body in the real world. Mark intends to make the nutritional dormancy chamber similar to the insertion plug EVA cockpit in Neon Genesis Evangelion. After the user enters the cabin, he injects a bloody yellowish viscous liquid called LCL into it. Its material composition is similar to the foundation of life, the original soup, which can be compared with the mother and son's 660 palace. Amniotic fluid phase analogy. Although amniotic fluid cannot provide oxygen roar suction, when the fluid is connected to electricity, its molecular composition will change, composed of electric nuclear recombination molecules, which can carry out the nerve connection between the nutritional dormancy chamber and the user. It also supplies oxygen, energy and nutrients. This means that the oxygen content in LCL exceeds 21% and is responsible for life maintenance tasks. Chapter 51. Although Mark doesn't know what the LCL formula in Neon Genesis Evangelion is made of, Mark already has a goal for a substitute with similar function, that is, the Super Soldier Serum. You know, since the Super Soldier Serum can transform a captain who is thinner than an ordinary person into a super soldier who exceeds the limit of the human body, except for the core factor that can be the gene metamorphosis and repair the gene defect, the terror energy contained in it and rich nutrients are also indispensable. According to the technical data recorded in S.H.I.E.L.D., when Captain Steve Rogers was undergoing the transformation of the Super Soldier plan, he also entered a closed transformation chamber. After a sufficient amount of Super Soldier Serum was injected, the electrical transformer in the laboratory was completely replaced. The electric energy of the city is supplied to the Gamma 6 or 7 ray generator in the transformation cabin, which produces high-intensity gamma rays. The Super Soldier Serum in Roger's body will change its molecular composition under the impact of high-speed gamma-ray particles. It is composed of electronuclear recombined molecules, and then connects with the nerves in Steve's body to provide nutrition and energy for the metamorphosis of his genes and cells. The working principle of Super Soldier Serum in this process is very similar to that of LCL, so Mark also boldly imagined that Super Soldier Serum could be used as a substitute for LCL and used in his nutritional dormancy chamber. However, the premise of all this is that Mark can restore the original formula of Super Soldier Serum. Fortunately, Mark has obtained a lot of relevant information before and has made gratifying progress. I believe that as long as the research is not more than a week, he can fully master the core technology of Super Soldier Serum. It is not a problem to completely crack the Super Soldier Serum technology, but the original Super Soldier Serum created by Dr. Erskine is not suitable for my current needs. Although the evolution factor in the Super Soldier's serum can repair the defects in the gene, the human body can break the restriction and obtain extraordinary ability. But some information fragments in genes that affect personality will also have huge amounts of influence. For example, according to research, although the onset of antisocial personality disorder is related to a person's objective growth environment, in recent years, according to the genetic factors of antisocial personality disorder, criminological studies have shown that personality disorder has been found to be related to certain factors. Gene polymorphisms or gene mutations are associated. In other words, if a person's genes originally have defects that may cause antisocial personality disorder, then the Super Soldier Serum will not repair it. It will also make this possibility inevitable and infinitely amplify it, making it comparable to the murderous character in DC Comics' Joker. This is why the Super Soldier Serum was also used. Schmidt of Hydra became the cruel Red Skull, and Steve Rogers became the respected Captain America. If I want to inject myself with Super Soldier Serum, I need to turn this unstable genetic modification into targeted and stable genetic evolution, which is no less difficult than carrying out genetic surgery for myself and modifying gene fragments at will. Instead of spending energy on this, it is better to extract the relevant functions that I need from the serum to form a specific serum byproduct. As long as the nutritional dormancy chamber and virtual laboratory are researched, I will be able to crack the PIM as soon as possible. The secret of the particles is created by that technology, then the problem of body strength and recovery of ability will not be a problem. Quote, in order to successfully set up the virtual laboratory as soon as possible, Mark has been working on the Super Soldier Serum for a week, which can be said to be night and day. Just 2 days ago, he has completely cracked Dr. Erskine's original Super Soldier Serum formula. The key step now underway is to extract the nutrients that can be used as universal nutrients to supplement the human body from the Super Soldier Serum formula, as well as the metabolites that can provide energy and oxygen to the cells. After testing multiple formulas, the nutrient solution in Mark's hands is the final product. He is full of confidence. Mark uses a dropper in his hand to remove a tube of test solution from it, squeeze a few drops onto the analyzer in the laboratory, and then press the button to start bombarding it with high-speed electrons. Under the impact of high-speed electrons, the molecular composition in the nutrient solution has indeed changed. While releasing a large amount of energy and oxygen, the various atoms and molecules that split and reorganize perfectly form the body's cell metabolism. All the nutrients needed zero. Great. The formula of the nutrient solution has been completed, then you can start building the nutrient hibernation chamber. Mark's eyes are full of red blood, 2 big dark circles hung around his eyes, and his pale, paper complexion shows his current state of exhaustion. But even in this state, Mark still jumped up excitedly, shouting roar for his success. Because once his vision becomes a reality, his future deductions and experiments can be studied without any scruples while ensuring his health. But let's get a good night's sleep before that. If I die suddenly before the virtual laboratory is completed, it's not worth it. After that, Mark didn't pick a place and fell straight into the laboratory. On the sofa in the middle, Roar fell asleep. When he woke up, it was already 9 o'clock in the morning the next day. Having ate the breakfast prepared by the secretary for himself hastily, Mark immediately went into the construction of the dormant cabin. Compared with the research on the formula of nutrient solution, the construction of the nutrient dormant cabin is much simpler. First of all, it is necessary to reserve a space for a virtual reality host, and then it must have an injection port that can be filled with the nutrient solution. The comfort of lying down for the user needs to be considered, and the airtightness during use and the discharge of nutrient solution after use should also be designed well. Finally, just carry an arc reactor to supply energy for the entire nutrient dormancy chamber. The simple mechanical structure design of this function is a breeze for Mark. So it took half an hour to complete the design drawings in Mark, and then let the smart assistant upload the 3D printing equipment for manufacturing. In the end, Mark personally installed the circuit board, connected the cable, and imported the program. After 11 hours, the first nutritional dormancy cabin was completed. Successfully created the nutritional dormancy cabin he envisioned. Mark's tense nerves were temporarily relaxed, and he continued to conduct research to maintain the high-speed operation of his brain, so that Mark, who was relaxed at the moment, could clearly feel the body's direction. His warning signal. After all, even if I had a long schedule and restlessness before, I would at least ensure that I had enough sleep. But this time I was really a little bit on the top, and the body that hadn't been rested for a long time also showed various discomforts, to remind him not to overdraw his future because of his youth and strength. It just happened that the nutritional dormancy cabin was also completed. I will lie in and have a try now to see how effective the nutrient solution I prepared is and whether it can repair my fatigue. Looking at the nutritional hibernation cabin in front of him that has not undergone any safety tests, Mark is full of confidence in his work, and he does not hesitation. He directly opens the cabin door and lie down, becoming the first one to experience the function of the hibernation cabin voluntarily. Little white mouse. When the whole person adjusted his posture and lay down completely, Mark reached out and clicked on the control panel of the bulkhead. After a while, the hatch door that received the instruction was slowly closed. When the door is closed, the soft ambient light in the dormant cabin is also turned on. Mark is surrounded by the soft light blue in it. Subsequently, Mark chose the normal training mode without connecting to the virtual reality host according to the guidance of the touchscreen on the hatch. In the normal training mode, the user's consciousness will not be shielded by the virtual reality host, so he can clearly feel the nutrient solution being injected slowly, knowing the feeling of completely submerging himself in the end. To be honest, if there is another experiencer instead of Mark himself, and it is not completely certain whether the nutrient solution can produce sufficient oxygen supply under the electric nuclear recombination, facing this situation of being gradually submerged, it should be how a kind of fear leads to despair. I am afraid that an ordinary person will have a phobia of swimming from now on. However, facing the gradually rising liquid level after the nutrient solution was slowly poured in, Mark just closed his eyes gently, his face calm and calm. From this we can know how confident Mark is in the things he invented. Finally, when the liquid level completely covered Mark's nose and mouth, and completely filled the entire cabin, Mark was driven by instinct and habitually wanted to perform roar suction, but because of this action, the nutrient liquid was choked into the trachea. The whole person twitched fiercely. But as the nutrient solution pouring into Mark's body gradually filled his lungs and trachea, the particle emitters that had been activated in the entire nutrient dormancy chamber began to accelerate the ejection of electrons, and when they bombarded the nutrient solution molecules, they produced them together. Violent chemical reaction. The nutrient solution molecules decompose and reorganize, and constantly penetrate into the gaps in each cell of Mark's body, creating connections with neurons. It reflects that the oxygen, energy and nutrients produced in this direct way are directly absorbed and consumed by the cells in the body, and a high-speed metabolism is started, repairing the damage and toxins accumulated by Mark these days. And after a short period of adaptation, Mark is also used to this way of not needing to use the lung roar to suck, set a sleep time on the touch screen, and then continue to close his eyes. This person fell into a deep sleep just after Mark's deep sleep, as the nutrient solution that was bombarded by the electric nucleus and turned into a femtometer scale continued to act on all the cells in Mark's body, necrotic or mutated cells, and various toxins produced by the metabolism of the cells. Wastes begin to be excreted from the body along with the residual nutrient solution in the intercellular space under the action of the body's osmotic pressure. After the waste liquid full of waste is removed, it is obvious that a dark water stream gushes from Mark's body and continues to spread, contaminating the pure nutrient solution in the dormant chamber. And how can Mark, who has already thought about everything, leave such a mistake? After the detector in the nutrition dormancy cabin senses that the nutrient solution is contaminated, it immediately sends an alarm signal to the central computer. The program in the computer automatically turns on the circulation filter system of the cabin according to the preset command. After the circulating filter system is opened, the nutrient solution in the cabin begins to be drained to the filter system for purification. After the purification is completed, the pure nutrient solution will be released back into the dormant cabin, and the computer will also control the injection system to inject new nutrient solution to supplement the loss of the entire repair process. After this process lasted for a full 2.5 hours, before Mark's previously set sleep time timer expired, he had already recovered from his deep sleep. It can be seen from the refreshed and rejuvenated appearance after waking up that the effect of the nutritional dormancy chamber is indeed very powerful. A whole body repair treatment has ended. Not only has Mark's spirit been recovered very well, but more importantly, he has never felt that his body is so light and energetic. This energetic feeling fascinates him. Without continuing to wait until the end of the set time, Mark directly clicked the stop button, and the nutrient solution in the cabin began to drain slowly. At the same time, the computer also activated the drying function to help the user dry the remaining liquid on the body surface and clothes. After being filtered, the discharged nutrient solution will be redirected to the storage room, waiting for the next use. And if these nutrient solutions are not used again before the best use date, then the dormant cabin will start the destruction procedure, completely decompose it into harmless liquid, and discharge it into the company's waste liquid treatment tank. Waiting for centralized processing. The same filtered waste liquid will also be discharged into the waste liquid treatment tank through the sewage pipe, waiting for professional treatment. The hatch opened, and Mark, who was completely dry, turned out of the dormant cabin. Uncontrollably, after landing on both feet, he first came to take off on the spot. This light and light posture actually reached a takeoff distance of 80 centimeters. You must know that this is the data that many outstanding athletes can achieve, and now Mark, a perennial homesteader who does not do sports, can easily achieve this result after a body repair. It is really breathtaking. Dubai, come and do a physical examination for me, Mark said to a small box on the test bench. This Big White is not the other Big White, the real Big White is still sleeping obediently in his manor in Port Marbury. This Dubai can be regarded as a duplication, because since Mark upgraded Dubai's smart core and uploaded it to his server as an intelligent assistant, in theory, Dubai can appear as long as there is a network. This castrated version placed on the experimental table is controlled by connecting to the intelligent core of Dubai through the local area network in the laboratory. Master, I will scan you. The scan begins, the scan ends. Do you need to broadcast the results in voice? No need. Directly form a graphic report and send it to my computer. Received, Master. The distribution has been completed. If there are no other instructions, please rate my service this time. I'm very satisfied, you can continue to sleep. Mark nodded in satisfaction. After duplication, Dubai received the evaluation. The indicator on his body went dark and went back to the standby state again. Bring up the holographic projection effect. Click to open the medical report sent by Dubai. The report shows that Mark's body is very healthy. Not only the sub-health caused by the long-term lack of motivation in the home, but also the hemorrhoids formed by long-term sitting have been completely repaired. And according to the data in the report, not only has Mark's physical condition returned to its peak, his skin condition, and the condition of his scalp hair follicles have also reached or even surpassed the standard he should be at the age of 14. This information made Mark a pleasant surprise even if it was an accident. The accident was because he had completely ignored that the body repair of the nutritional dormancy cabin could bring this additional benefit. The surprise was because Mark found another good project to make money. After all, the rich in this world, who do not want to keep their body healthy and look young. Not to mention how attractive this black technology that can repair the vitality of hair follicles is for people in Europe and the United States who have a particularly serious problem of baldness. In addition, a key consumer group is women from all over the world, who have the opportunity to have smooth, firm and elastic skin. Is there anything more that can make them willing to pay for it? At that time, as long as this product is launched, whether it is sold in the whole machine or charged per time, coupled with the constant sales income of the follow-up nutrient solution source, this is another good business that can make a lot of money in the long run. At the thought of this, Mark's eyes seemed to shine with golden light. Calm down a bit, suppressing his inner desire for money, Mark is very clear about what he should accomplish next. If he wants to build a virtual laboratory in the virtual world, he still lacks the last piece of hardware, which is the virtual reality host. Different from civilian virtual reality game consoles, medical teaching consoles, and military training simulation consoles to be sold to the outside world, the virtual reality consoles Mark uses must be able to withstand the load of brain overclocking applications. The materials and the corresponding structural design need to be adjusted. The first is the appearance material. In order to better transmit the signal of the idea wave of the brain-computer interface, Mark uses the precious metal platinum as the main material, and the internal wires and semiconductor chips of the components. Mark does not use traditional copper wires or silver wire and silicon semiconductor chip. He used a brand new graphene normal temperature superconducting nanomaterial to make the wire material. At the same time, all the circuit boards and semiconductor chips in the body were replaced with the graphene integrated chip that was used on Baoming No 1 so that it can complete the high frequency time calculation work. And in appearance, Mark did not use nerve gear like an amateur boxing head protector like a wraparound design, but designed its appearance to resemble a headset, but it is not worn on the ears, it needs to be worn on both sides of the temple. After just undergoing a physical repair, Mark, who was refreshed, his work efficiency is also amazing. After deciding all the technical directions in more than 10 minutes, it only took 45 minutes for Mark to have it. The design drawing of the entire virtual reality host is completed. In addition, he is in the mood forever, and he designed all 3 virtual reality host devices for civilian, medical, and military for the next quarter. Only after the company communicated with Stark Industrial, the transformation of the Stark Industrial production line was completed. These products can be put into production at any time, and sufficient stocks are prepared for sales in the next quarter. But these are not things Mark needs to worry about. He sent 3 external product design drawings to the general manager's computer. Mark directly shouted to the smart assistant and said, "There are new tasks. The materials are ready," and then immediately follow the design file numbered 10,086 on my server to make a prototype. Received, Master, the mission is in progress. After preparing the raw materials, Dubai controlled the 3D printer to work again. In less than an hour, the prototype designed by Mark was completed. The world's first virtual reality host came out today. Dubai, help me to separate a server from the company's server cluster and cut off its physical connection with the internet as an excuse. From now on, I want to create a virtual world that belongs to me alone. It is not easy to build a virtual world. The first problem is the hardware. In the virtual reality, if the feelings and feedback obtained by people are closest to the reality, the larger the data needed to construct the entire virtual reality. Let alone how to obtain such a huge amount of data. Just finding a storage server that can store this huge amount of data is already a difficult challenge for people with insufficient financial resources. But this is not a problem for Mark at all. After the company released its first product and became profitable, Mark first upgraded various equipment of his company. The server cluster currently used by the Mark Research Center is not a traditional server array, but an entire cloud platform built on the basis of the universal material graphene. Through this cloud platform constructed with hundreds of billions of high-performance graphene nano nodes, the servers in the computer room can be logically divided and invoked at will, and the load balancing of the calculation amount can be realized. At the same time, the superconducting graphene material has greatly improved. If you increase the computing speed and storage capacity of the server, the current performance can be said to be very close to the quantum computer envisioned by scientists. In addition, the scenarios required for the virtual laboratory that Mark wants to build are not complicated. The main data is still in the experiment, and the specific data of the experimental materials in reality need to be called to ensure the accuracy of the results of the virtual experiment. So even if the server performance is poor, Mark's current needs can be fulfilled. This is why Mark calls a server in the server cluster. The file size of the data volume is controlled by Mark, and there is no need to worry about hardware problems. The rest is the last and most difficult problem, which is the problem of data sources. Just typing the code on the computer, even if he has the great ability to restore the appearance and color of real objects in the virtual world, but the touch, texture, weight, smell and temperature of the same item cannot be created by simple tapping code. Come out, so that the source of these data has become the most difficult problem in building a virtual world. However, although the blunt code and program cannot accurately reproduce the sensory experience of the real world in virtual reality, the code and program can quantify the collected data to deduce a series of other sensory data. For example, Mark can upload all the memories he has experienced since childhood to the database through the brain-computer interface, and then analyze and classify the programs through the analysis and classification of the various objects that Mark has touched. And emotions, data quantification. The reason for quantifying the data is that even though Mark has been exposed to all the substances in the world, when they are different due to the influence of their size and other factors, their weight and other aspects give people all the feelings. It's totally different. But if the data is quantified, when Mark lifts a 10 kilogram weight in the virtual world, the system can call the quantitative data of Mark lifting a 1 kilogram weight and multiply it by 10 to be fed back to the brain to achieve sensory accuracy. This is also true for all other feelings. For example, the taste of rice wine is composed of rice taste and wine taste and the special smell of yeast after fermentation. If there is no rice wine data in the memory uploaded by Mark to the database, but there are rice, wine, and yeast data, then the system only needs to follow the program, according to the corresponding proportion of the quantitative data of the hit taste, can also reproduce the taste of rice wine in the virtual world. And this idea of Mark is completely feasible. Although the human brain has the difference between short-term memory and long-term memory due to the memory of everything, people can actually recall only a small part of all the things they have experienced in their lifetime. But the inability to call does not mean that they do not exist. In fact, as long as the data is memorized into the brain, unless the brain is diseased or damaged, the memory data will never be lost. Because the brain cells of our brain will not be renewed like other cells in the body. From our birth to death, our brain cells will not be replaced in our lifetime, but will only repair themselves, and we are stored in them. The memory of is constantly transferred among neurons. It can be said that our brain is like a hard disk. All memories that have existed will leave traces. The reason why we cannot recall some memories is because the location of the folder where they are placed has moved, so we cannot call them. But using brain-computer interface technology to copy it out does not have this problem, because the machine does not care what the content is. The machine only knows that if it exists, then copy it out. As for the sorting and sorting, it will be handed over to other machines or the procedure is complete. And what Mark is going to do now is the same. How do you feel that you are doing more and more things when you are doing things that were simple projects? Now you have to compile a program to quantify sensory data, both. At this point, just type the code. If you give up, you will be completely lost. Roar. In front of the test bench, Mark raised his hand and wiped the sweat from his forehead due to concentration, and let out a long sigh of relief. Everything is ready, and it's time to experience it for yourself. Only after using it can we get enough data to judge whether this experiment is a success or a failure. After debugging and modification again and again, Mark finally completed the quantification program of the feeling data. In addition, he had already transmitted the memory data in his brain to the server through the brain-computer interface as early as a week ago. Now that hardware, software, and basic data are all ready, Mark is also going to use himself as an experimental mouse again, personally enter the virtual reality he built, and check his long-awaited 677 virtual reality. Whether the laboratory can meet its expectations. Mark connects a data cable to the external interface of the nutrition dormancy cabin to connect it with the server, and exchange and store virtual data in real time with real data. Then he took off all his outer clothes and pants, leaving only a pair of underpants, put on the virtual reality host and lay down in the dormant cabin. Unlike before, Mark first inserted the power cord and data cable on the virtual reality host into the internal interface of the dormant cabin, and then chose the virtual connection mode instead of the normal repair mode before. Once again, the dormant cabin door slowly closed. Mark pressed the connection button on the virtual reality host, and as the sound of the brain-computer interface transmitted through the mind wave sounded, he calmly closed his eyes. Welcome to the first-generation virtual experiment system host. The identity has been verified. The user with the highest authority. The virtual reality connection will start in 3 seconds. Please be prepared. 3, 2, 1. Link start. Quote. With a feeling of weightlessness, Mark, who had already closed his eyes and was lying in the dormant cabin, at the moment could feel the dazzling light passing through his eyelids and into his eyes. Slowly opened his eyes. The surrounding area was neither the laboratory he was familiar with nor the nutritional dormancy chamber he had entered before. There are bright white and smooth walls all around, like a completely sealed prison. There was nothing in the room, except for a vast expanse of whiteness. Nothing could be distinguished at all. But Mark did not panic, because he knew that at the moment had successfully entered the virtual reality that he designed himself. In order to compress the underlying data and construction time of the entire virtual laboratory, Mark deleted all unnecessary foreign objects, and only kept the invisible hidden objects such as the Earth's gravity, air pressure, and air composition that would affect the final experimental data. The entire laboratory has no furnishings or decorations, only empty floor ceilings, white walls all around, and light from unknown sources. Although it was a bit simpler, Mark tried his best to convince himself that this reduced all the distractions and allowed him to focus more on the experimental project. And if you want to upgrade, you have to add a few sets of servers and slowly modify them in the future. What is the difficulty for Mark? Having confirmed the success of the first virtual reality he built, Mark actually stretched out his 5 fingers in midair, and Roar came out of the operation menu. He first needs to confirm that the exit button is still there. Although he said he was the creator of this world, the deep impression left after watching Sword Art Online still made him uncontrollable and want to check it out. After confirming that the exit key is indeed still there and not disappeared, Mark clicked on the laboratory option on the function menu. After entering, the options provided on the page are densely packed equipment, instruments and materials. Mark first chose to load his own personal assistant. Yes, through the serial connection of the data cable, Dubai can enter the virtual reality and provide help for Mark. As the progress bar on the menu was filled, Dubai's familiar voice also sounded in the empty room. "Master, what's your order? Help me call out the virtual equipment in the system according to the laboratory equipment in Reality Zero." Received, Master. Please wait a moment calling. Soon, new changes appeared in this empty laboratory. Items were outlined out of thin air. As the lines became denser and denser, the synthetic items became more and more real, and finally formed. With the laboratory equipment Mark needs, it looks like it is the magic pen Ma Liang's brush, which helps Mark draw all the equipment. When he came to a chemical experiment table, he picked up a flask and weighed it. Pressing this file size, its weight was almost the same as in reality. Then I picked up another flask with a larger volume, and the weight I felt in my hand also changed and became heavier. It seems that the feeling data quantification program has succeeded. I touched the surface of the flask, it was cold and smooth, and I touched the experiment table again, it was a frosted texture. After walking around these new devices in the laboratory, Mark picked out a few things and felt whether he could find the gap between the virtual reality and the real space. However, it turns out that Mark's work is perfect. With his picky temperament for his own results, he can't find any faults. Mark tried to destroy these devices again. In reality, 2 beakers with the same file size were dropped, and the 2 cups shattered. Mark squatted down and carefully checked whether there would be 2 identical fragments. No, he smashed the table to check the shape of the scar, and he couldn't find the same 2 scars. Only then did Mark confirm that the simulation program he wrote had indeed reached the level he expected, and the reliability of the results and data output by him in the laboratory was guaranteed. Next, it's time to try the brain overclocking application. But since it is necessary to test the time difference between the virtual world and the real world after the program is started, it is better for me to do the floating gun project by the way, and this plan is also delayed. It's been a long time, and it's time to hurry up. Speaking of it, the project of floating gun is not difficult for Mark. After all, Mark has mastered the same or completely replaceable technology for all the key technologies. For example, the anti-gravity engine that makes the floating gun levitate, Mark achieves the same effect through the 4-dimensional vector engine. The beam gun Mark is replaced by the energy cannon used by Tony on the steel armor. The brain wave transmission system is the brain that also uses the mind wave induction machine interface technology. The reconnaissance system is equipped with various optical lenses and high-power holographic scanners, plus a built-in arc reactor as the energy core. It should be completed soon. The reason why this project has been stuck with Mark for so long is that there are indeed too many things that have interfered with Mark's focus during this period, such as Obadiah's betrayal, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s transaction, and his own company's things. These things have allowed floating. The progress of the artillery was severely slowed down. In addition, don't look at Mark's mastery of all the core technologies, but the is not original. After all, it is not original. Mark can not only integrate various systems that have replaced the technical principles and integrate them into a whole, but also consider the application in shapeshifting shape design on King Kong body. It is not so simple to reintegrate the floating gun that has been modified in appearance and technology. But now that Mark has entered the virtual laboratory, and now he has opened the brain overclocking application. He has enough environment and sufficient design time for him to concentrate on the final design of the floating gun. Since the shape needs to match the sports car shape of the horizontal gun, the shape is already fixed first. Mark next needs to place the various parts of the system in a suitable position under the condition that the shape cannot be changed, and let them play their due effects. If in the end, after trying all the solutions, it still fails to meet the requirements, then Mark also needs to redesign each system mechanism to make it a HOD. Fortunately, after spending a lot of effort on trial and error, Mark finally found the most suitable internal mechanical structure of the floating gun, completed the design of the floating gun, plus the design of the main body of the horizontal gun that had been completed before. It can be said that Mark's shape-shifting King Kong project has finally completed 99%, and the remaining 1% is to manufacture the final machine body. Dubai. I'm here, Master, what's your order? Transfer the design of the floating gun that I designed to my personal server, and then together with the design in the folder of the previous shape-shifting King Kong project produce them according to the material requirements and design requirements. After going out, you will see the finished product in front of me. Receive the owner. The 3D printing equipment has begun to receive the design drawing data and start production. Since I came in, I calculated according to the timing method of the cesium atomic clock. How long has the virtual time in this virtual reality passed? Master, you have been in the virtual reality for 6 hours, 43 minutes and 22 seconds. So as of the moment you tell the time, how long has the real-world time been calculated based on the cesium atomic clock? Master, 24.202 seconds have passed in the real world, and the time flow ratio between the virtual world and the real world is 1001. 1001. The result is not bad, reaching the time ratio of the brain overclocking in accelerated world, and thanks to the help of the nutritional dormancy cabin, this accelerated time can continue until the nutrient solution is exhausted. The purpose of entering virtual reality this time has been achieved. All the test results show that the virtual laboratory project has been successful. Now you can try to exit and return to the real world to check whether the long-term brain overclocking has any impact on the body. Quote. Mark stretched out his 5 fingers and pressed it in the air to call up the function menu interface, and directly clicked the exit button at the bottom. The light and shadow changed, and when he opened his eyes again, Mark returned to the nutrient dormancy cabin he was lying in before. Reality Roar called Dubai's duplication to do a physical examination, which proved the safety of virtual reality equipment, and more importantly, proved the safety of brain overclocking. I spent a few hours in the virtual world, but returned to reality but only a few dozen seconds passed, which is far from enough to complete the shape-shifting King Kong, so Mark did not see himself as soon as he came out. The long-awaited horizontal cannon. I opened the smartwatch and checked my schedule. There are 2 virtual reality game development platforms and sales platforms to be developed, and the problem of PIM particles has not been resolved. However, Mark, who has just solved the design problem of the floating gun, has no motivation to complete the 2 platforms, such as pediatrics with little technical content. However, in the face of the epic boss of the PIM particle, do you have the confidence to overcome it? Mark didn't know what to do. I just got out of the dormant cabin, and my physical and mental state is very good. I can't sleep even if I rest. Moreover, with the dormant cabin, the sleep time I need is greatly shortened. I will definitely have more time in the future, not to mention. I also have a virtual laboratory to speed up the time. I should really think about how to make the most of my time. But suddenly, Mark's mind flashed, and he thought of something he had forgotten. I can't think of future things for the time being, but there is one thing I can try right now. I forgot to try it in reality. What is it like trying to overclock your brain? Now it seems quite exciting to think about it. Master, please be careful when you die. In the state of consciousness not entering the virtual reality, the brain can be overclocked in the real world. No matter from the hardware or software, there is no difference in the principle. The difference is whether to let one's consciousness enter the virtual reality with faster time flow. But there is a problem with brain overclocking in reality practicality. After the brain is overclocked, it can indeed allow the experiencer to get faster reaction speed and more sensitive logical thinking. When the somatosensory 1 second is stretched by 1000 times, everything around it will seem to be still, even in the face of a sniper. The hand-launched bullets, the experiencer also has the opportunity to be able to dodge, which will become a great advantage in actual combat. But at the same time it will also cause a great burden on the body. Without the assistance of the nutritional dormancy chamber, even the captain using the super soldier serum would not last for 4 seconds. But in the real world, how can users who need to use this technology in actual combat lie in the dormant cabin to fight? If the warrior's consciousness is loaded onto the combat robot through brain-computer interface technology and accelerated at the same time, then the essence is the same as the acceleration in virtual reality, which is not a breakthrough. Even Mark thinks that instead of accelerating the consciousness of the combatants and transmitting them to the combat robots, it is better to turn his combat experience into a program and accelerate through the computing core of the robot, so that not only can the war machine be mass-produced, but it can also make breakthroughs. The physiological limit of the human brain's 1000 times acceleration limit. And the reason why Mark wants to break through the physical and technical limitations of brain overclocking in the real world is mainly because of his unreliable stinky old man. After all, this guy likes to put on irons and go to battle in person. If he can add this acceleration function to his battle suit, maybe the shutdown button can help him save his life. Fantasy is definitely not good. After all, there is no data to support. I just thought that there would be no results if my head was bald, so I had to give it a try. I will open the reality acceleration function on the virtual reality host in a while. I will open the system's termination authority to you. You help me monitor my body and collect data on various physiological indicators. Once my body is facing a breakdown, you just terminate this experiment early. Quote. Okay, Master. Dubai is ready. The termination of permission is successfully received, and the test can start at any time. Mark nodded and found an empty place in the laboratory to prevent him from hitting a hard object if he couldn't bear to pass out for a while. After repeated deep roar inhalation a few times, Mark finally adjusted his state, his solemn expression gradually relaxed. The experiment begins. After that, Mark raised his hand and pressed the reality acceleration button of the virtual reality host on his head. Hum. There was a sudden muffled noise in his head, as if he was suddenly hit with a pillow. After getting used to the feeling of overclocking the brain in reality, this dizziness soon disappeared. After recovering, Mark began to observe his surroundings. After overclocking his brain, his insight seems to have been increased. The invisible dust in the air is now in his eyes. The small flying insects floating in the air not far in front of them seem to be frozen in the air, keeping the posture of waving their wings motionless. Mark tried to reach out and grab this little flying insect and observe it. Then he immediately felt that his body was plunged into a quagmire. Not only was it extremely heavy, but it also had a very viscous resistance. Not adapted. It seems that the speed of my consciousness now far exceeds the limit of the body's ability. The instructions issued by the brain are transmitted by neurons, the body reacts, and finally produces actions. After the time of this series of mechanisms is extended, it will give me a brain in overclocking. This kind of sensation of slow motion makes the body heavy and uncontrollable. If I use force now, it is likely to cause serious muscle strain. It seems that this is also a problem that needs to be solved. Under the overclocking of the brain, even if the body receives any damage, the time for the nerve endings to transmit information will be extended by 1000, so that the brain has no time to activate the protective mechanism and how to coordinate the product's brain and a dull body needs a mechanism of action. Quote. However, Mark did not continue to think about these questions. These questions can be left to slowly think about after entering the virtual laboratory. Now the important thing is to find the problems as much as possible, so that the technology can be better improved. Without forcing the body to move vigorously, Mark kept in slow motion and slowly grabbed the little flying insect. He did this to save the data of the body's movement speed, which can be called out from the data recorded by Dubai as a body coordination. The reference data of the mechanism. So, after more than 10 minutes in such slow motion, Dubai terminated this brain overclocking experiment, allowing Mark to retreat from the accelerated world. When I quit, I felt like I jumped into the swimming pool from a 10-meter platform and floated up. I was plunged into a tightly wrapped silence, and then everything around me began to become noisy, and my body seemed to be after breaking through the water, all resistance disappeared. But the reality is not as good as Mark feels. As soon as he quit the acceleration world, he lost his balance and fell to the ground. Fortunately, I was prepared beforehand and didn't bump into anything. As the somatosensory time returned to normal, the body's senses gradually began to feed back the feelings of this experiment to Mark's still confused brain. Hiss. A sudden burst of sourness hit the soul, and even the temples felt a burst of bursts. Tingling. Mark didn't care about the others, so he hurriedly climbed into the nutrition dormancy cabin, turned on the virtual reality mode, shielded the body's wailing, and allowed the nutrient solution to repair his body well. In the virtual laboratory, Mark finally got rid of the heart-wrenching pain just now. He took a long breath and touched the non-existent cold sweat on his forehead, and said with lingering fear, "Next time I will find someone else to be my little boy. The white mouse is good, I don't want to go to the battle myself. Dabai, pass the data over, I want to see if the data I have sacrificed so much is worthwhile." Just turning on the brain overclocking for 1 second, did you overuse your brain? In the virtual laboratory, looking at the monitoring report displayed on the computer screen, Mark said with some surprise. This is the sound of the big white car explaining to him, "Master, although your body has been restored to a healthy state through the restoration of the nutritional dormancy cabin, you have not paid attention to nutritional balance for a long time, and lack of physical exercise, resulting in your cardiopulmonary function, muscle content and energy storage in the body cannot support your brain overload." Mark nodded secretly, agreeing with Dabai's explanation. After all, he had implanted tens of thousands of medical solutions for Dabai himself. In this respect, Dabai must be more professional than himself. Looking at the report displayed on the screen again, physical function is unbalanced, hypoglycemia caused by excessive consumption of liver glycogen and muscle glycogen, systemic hypoxia, minor muscle tears and acute ligament strains. Looking at the series of medical illness terms appearing on his body, if it weren't for the nutritious dormant capsule to help repair the injury, Mark planned to sneak in the virtual reality for a few months before returning to reality. After carefully analyzing all the data obtained during the entire experiment, Mark calculated that if you want to use the brain overclocking function for a long time without side effects, then your own body strength needs to be increased by at least 13.3 times, that is, at least twice. At the level of Captain America. Or to greatly reduce the brain overclocking rate, adjust the time ratio of 1,000 to 1,200, which can also effectively reduce the burden on the body during use. A healthy adult can use it for more than 45 minutes without interruption. For those with mechanical battle suit assistance and protection, such as Tony, the body coordination mechanism can be incorporated into the battle suit program, which can further increase the overclocking frequency to a certain extent. Considering the energy consumption of the brain overclocking, it can be approximately the time ratio of 1,600 accelerates by more than 1 hour. With the attack power of the Tony Mark series of battle armor, this time is enough for him to solve most difficult opponents. Christmas is coming this year too. I just developed this acceleration system and gave it to my father as a Christmas gift. Then I have to show off my shapeshifting King Kong and virtual laboratory in front of him, he he he. In the blink of an eye, Christmas Eve in 2010, light snow drifted up on the sea of Port Marbury at the moment. As a rich area where the rich gather, at the moment the entire port of Marbury has been arranged into a red and green Christmas scene, with a string of colorful LED hanging lights, quite a lively atmosphere. But in fact, most of the shops on the street will not open on this day. People will get home from get off work early to celebrate the festive season with their families. Therefore, the deserted streets at the moment are the true face of Port Marbury. Except for large cities like New York that will hold large-scale events in Times Square, the streets across the country should now be similar to this side. Today, Khan also agreed with Tony in advance to go home to spend this important holiday together. However, unlike usual, he needed a driver to pick him up. Mark drove back to his manor by himself for the first time. In fact, it is not so much driving alone as it is the car driving automatically, and this car is nothing else. It is the first shapeshifting diamond in the Marvel Universe, the horizontal gun, which is designed and manufactured with reference to the shape of Chevrolet Corvette Stingray. It is a piece of cake to load an independent intelligence system and the same emotional recognition system as Dubai to achieve such a function as automatic driving. Already near the villa, the horizontal gun slowly slowed down and drove slowly into the underground garage. Behind him is also pulling a trailer, on which lies the virtual laboratory equipment and accelerator that Mark is going to show off in front of Tony. Coming up from the garage and entering the restaurant, Mark saw a table full of sumptuous Christmas dinners, Tony sitting in the main seat and playing with his mobile phone, and Pepper who was busy placing tableware. It seems that you are making good progress. Seeing Pepper appearing at such a close family dinner, Mark knew that during this period of time when he was not working as a light bulb at home, the relationship between the two must have grown by leaps and bounds. Therefore, can't help but joking to them. Zero. When you get there, sit down and prepare to eat, and cover your mouth with food, brat. Tony raised his head and rolled his eyes at Mark. Happy Christmas Eve, Mark, it's been a long time. Pepper also naturally called roar to Mark. The relationship between him and Mark was very similar to his siblings. In addition, Mark was very supportive of his and Tony's affairs, so he was free to admire him. Poe did not feel embarrassed because he might become his stepmother. I can't help it, there are too many good ideas in my mind, and the company is so profitable, and there are a lot of things to be busy. I can't learn from my father so unpretentious. If my wealth is surpassed by my son that day, then what a shame. Yes, old man. I guess, after the release of our company's new products in the next quarter, I should be worth more than you. Quote. New product. Tony was surprised and delighted when he heard Mark's news. What was surprised was that Mark's development speed was too fast. What's delighted is that he has great expectations for what Mark has created. Is it coming out next season? Great, Mark, when do you have a closed beta of your first game? I'm looking forward to this new product, Pepper said with some excitement. Pepper, you already knew. Tony didn't expect Pepper to get the news faster than himself. Really, Mark's employees have already sent the production line transformation plan and product processing drawings to Stark Industry a week ago. You don't even know it. Pepper gave Tony a disgusted look. Isn't this to rest assured of you? Don't rush to criticize me, first tell me what product you are looking forward to. Tony has been busy upgrading his own armor recently and handing over the company's affairs. I gave Pepper to deal with it, so I didn't hear the news at all. Wait for Sister Pepper, don't tell Dad yet. I have already brought the prototype. This surprise will be announced after the meal. I had a good Christmas Eve dinner, because I was attracted by the prototype that Mark said. Neither Tony nor Pepper had the intention of tasting the delicacies on the table. The two who finished the dinner hastily, regardless of whether Mark was full or not, they dragged him out of the underground garage, and couldn't wait to see his new invention. Well, since you are so impatient, I will show you my latest inventions, the virtual reality host, the nutritional dormancy cabin, and the virtual laboratory. In front of the trailer, Mark turned sideways and showed the equipment he brought this time. In front of the two. Hearing Mark's introduction, although Pepper was very excited, his reaction was not great. Instead, Tony, as if he couldn't believe his ears, confirmed to Mark, did you say it wrong, or did I hear it wrong? You actually completed the virtual reality technology. Seeing Tony dumbfounded, with an unbelievable look on his face, Mark shrugged his shoulders unceasingly. What is the result? I don't count it. If you don't believe it, how about trying it yourself? Use your support to judge by Knee Stark's standards. Is my new invention up to the standard? Okay, try and try. I want to see if your virtual reality technology is real or a gimmick. Tony didn't show any timidity, and told Shalban to remove the equipment from the car safely, and then asked, how to use this thing. Mark helped him bring the virtual reality host to his head, and then said, you will lie down comfortably in the nutrition dormancy cabin later, and then connect the two wires on the host to the cabin according to the interface, and the rest is fine. I will control it through external equipment. Mark simply told Tony how to use it. After a few minutes, Tony was ready to lie down in the dormant cabin and started the first virtual reality experience. Link start. Following the prompt sound of the virtual host, Tony entered the virtual reality after experiencing a sense of weightlessness. Did the sneak succeed, Daddy? Outside, Mark connected to the dormant cabin through an external device and transmitted his voice to the virtual reality. It should have been successful, but there is a vast white space around here, and there is nothing. The virtual space you built is too crude. Tony murmured in disgust. He. Mark suddenly gave a weird smile. In this case, don't ask me to give you a set after you come out for a while. Now you try to stretch out your 5 fingers and press against the air, so that you can call out the function. The menu interface. Oh, let me try. Tony acted on Mark's explanation, and sure enough, he summoned the menu interface. Well, this design is very convenient. Let me see what options this function menu has. It's okay if you don't look at it. If you look closely, all kinds of experimental equipment, special materials, and special test environments can be simulated in this virtual reality. Tony didn't believe it, and tried to select a few devices. Soon, the equipment he selected was outlined, and it appeared in this white space. The hands-on experience, not only the perfect restoration of the hand feel, but also the exquisite display of the details. Mark, do you want to build an exclusive laboratory in the virtual world? It is a good idea. You can use the virtual environment to simulate a special environment that is difficult to create in the real environment, and do some dangerous experiments without harming yourself. The processing of various details is also very good. No wonder you designed the entire laboratory as a white space to reduce the amount of data. After all, to restore such a real feeling, you need to store a lot of data, and you'll treat the data. Perform quantitative classification. Quote. That's right, it's worthy of being an old man. It always hits the nail on the head when looking at problems, but one thing you didn't mention is that my virtual laboratory can not only facilitate various test procedures, but more importantly, I can perform up to 1,000 times the virtual world. Time is accelerating, which means you sneaked for 1,000 seconds in the virtual world, but only 1 second has passed in the real world. In this way, my experimental project will greatly reduce the time required. Said in a wilting tone. What? Time is accelerating. Tony finally understood what was going on with Mark's voice that made him feel weird from the very beginning. He came to show it in front of him. But this is Mark, a virtual laboratory that can accelerate time, isn't it fragrant? Definitely fragrant. Tony quickly tried the time acceleration function Mark mentioned. After quitting the virtual reality verification, Tony finally had to believe that his son really did a great thing this time. Tony, who was completely conquered by this set of equipment, didn't stop being stiff, and immediately put aside his face and began to ask Mark about the function of each equipment and the principle of time acceleration. And Mark didn't mind sharing his knowledge with Tony, answering all questions and explaining Tony's question clearly. Your design is so perfect. You can think of overclocking your brain to accelerate the time in the virtual world, and at the same time let the hibernation cabin protect the body in the real world from collapse. No, even if you spend money, you have to give it a set. How much is up to you? Tony looked like he was willing to go. He seemed to be determined to win the virtual laboratory. But Mark hasn't gotten enough yet. Such a good opportunity will definitely have to show off all at once. Father, don't worry, I brought 3 new inventions today, and I will give you one of them as a Christmas gift. First, let me explain that these 3 works are my proud work. You'd better watch them all. I'm finally deciding. But at this moment, Pepper suddenly interjected. Mark, can this thing play virtual games? Ah, it can be, but the game hasn't been made yet, so I can't play the game for the time being. But don't worry, I will use the time of the virtual laboratory to speed up immediately after I go back, work overtime to develop it, and ensure that Sister Pepper, you are the first internal tester. It's all right. Tony interrupted the conversation between the two anxiously. Let's move on to the other 2 things first. The first virtual laboratory that Mark showed is enough to make people salivate, and according to Mark, there are 2 other new inventions of this level, which is simply to lift Tony's appetite to the sky. What? Yes, since you have put the virtual game on the agenda, let us show us the remaining 2 new inventions. Pepper is also very convinced of Mark's strength, and the other 2 new inventions. What novelty was there that attracted her curiosity deeply, and simply followed Tony's words and brought the topic back? Well, this second thing is actually in front of you, but you haven't discovered its special feature yet. Although it must be shown off in front of Tony, he is still the first after selling it. Let's find it. It's in this garage, and it's very conspicuous. Hearing the prompt given by Mark, both Tony and Pepper couldn't wait to move their eyes and search around. The sharp eyes looked like a lion searching for prey, making it chilling. But under the carpet-like gaze of the 2 of them, they still couldn't see any clues, making them both unwilling and impatient at the same time. But at this moment, Tony, who likes to collect cars, suddenly noticed that the appearance of the Chevrolet Corvette Stingray that Mark drove seemed a little different from the one in his collection. Tony, who knows cars very well, suddenly became suspicious. He asked uncertainly, "Your second new invention, isn't it this Chevrolet Corvette Stingray?" "Awesome, Daddy, you can see this." "That's right, this Chevrolet Corvette Stingray. I also specifically applied for a private copy of the car's designer and Chevrolet Depot, and asked each other helped me check the design drawings of the exterior, but you still saw the flaws. The whole thing is still very similar, but the details of your doors and air intakes make me feel a sense of fragmentation. But if you reproduce a Chevrolet Corvette Stingray, it is not an invention, is it? Human driving a car. It seems that you did not bring a driver today, but if you are just a driverless car, it cannot be compared with your first invention." Tony looked disappointed at the concept sports car that was reproduced by Mark and said, "No, no, no." Mark stretched out his right index finger and shook his head left and right, and said to Tony while shaking his head, "It's not that simple. Autonomous driving is just an additional function. Remember the shape-shifting King Kong project I mentioned to you? At that time, you also proposed to wait for your Mark Series battle armor and my shape-shifting King Kong to have a competition. Although my progress is a bit late, I think you can prepare for this competition now." Quote. What could it be? Tony seemed to have thought of something. The expression management on his face was completely out of control. "Yes, this is my first shape-shifting King Kong Hangpao. Like the name of this plan, its biggest feature is that it can be shape-shifting. Hangpao, come out and say roar to my dad. I will remember later. Show mercy." As soon as the voice fell, this peculiarly shaped silver-gray sports car broke apart from the middle. Accompanied by a sound of friction of mechanical structure separation and assembly, it turned into a giant robot with a foot on a hot wheel and a height of nearly 4 meters. This behemoth waved his right hand after the shapeshifting was completed, and used its hoarse mechanical sound to call Tony and Pepper roar, "Hello, I am shapeshifting King Kong Hangpao, please take care of it in the future." However, the two of them who were so shocked that they couldn't close their mouths naturally did not respond to its greetings. It is estimated that at this time except for no word can better express the mood of the two at the moment. After being shocked by the previous virtual laboratory once, the speed of the two returning to normal this time is obviously much faster. After recovering, Tony immediately leaned forward and began to carefully look at the huge amounts of mechanical body. "It's so beautiful, it's so beautiful. This line, this color, this flexible joint. Mark, your kid really surprises me every time. I thought I would use the cockpit as the control cabin. You control it internally, but you didn't expect you to directly become a silicon-based life with independent intelligence. And it can turn into a sports car, not to mention the idea alone is enough to surprise me. No, I also want to study a set of Mark Series armor that can be directly transformed from a sports car into a battle suit. But why didn't I see the weapon system? Do you want your robots to fight close to each other when they fight? Oh, it's a bad thing soon after meeting me that can fly like this. Also, look at your design. What is the messy decoration behind it? It takes up space and is meaningless, so it's better to replace it with 2 Gatling." Quote. Although I admire Mark's invention very much, and gave a high evaluation of its mechanical structure and shape-shifting creativity, after careful observation, it was found that Tony, who was not equipped with a weapon system, relentlessly complained about it. Tony, who started as a weapon merchant, naturally has nothing to say about such a giant robot that is not to be used. But Mark just listened and didn't refute. Instead, he showed a mysterious smile, which made Tony more and less emboldened, and his voice gradually became quieter. "Are you saying something?" Quote. "What can I say? Facts speak louder than words. What is its actual combat capability? You won't know if you try it for a while," Mark said disapprovingly. "That's true. Well, I'll change my outfit now, let's fight with it, and watch me give you a good memory. A robot with only appearance but no strength, no matter how big it is useless," Tony said confidently, ready to go to the dressing table to equip the battle suit. "Wait, before the start of the competition, there is still my third invention I haven't introduced yet." Mark grabbed Tony and preached. "It's okay to bring it back and watch it after the fight. You won't be able to spend much time with this thing. Tony is not optimistic about the actual ability of running horizontally, and directly praised Heiko. Moreover, under the influence of the impression left by the horizontal gun, Tony's expectation of Mark's remaining new invention also fell slightly. That won't work, Mark said hurriedly. The function of this third thing can be better demonstrated in actual combat, and you despise my horizontal cannon too much. It's not that it doesn't have a weapon system. It's just that I made the weapon system invisible. If you don't have the help of my third baby, I guess it's hard to escape if you want to escape. What Mark said made Tony very angry. This is not to say clearly, it's not that I despise you. Everyone here is rubbish, you can't even escape without my help, he tooey. When I was playing with missiles, your kid was still in my crotch and I didn't get shot out. You dare to look down on me. But he turned angry. Hearing Mark said that the gun was equipped with a weapon system, which made him a little vigilant, but in the end he insisted, "No, I will go back and let you see if I am." "How did you turn your shape-shifting diamond back into parts, huh?" After that, Tony directly boarded the dressing table and replaced him with the Mark IV battle suit that he had just developed recently. After dressing up, Tony and Hengpao went to the open space outside the villa. "Well, I will give you the opportunity to attack me first, otherwise, if I take action first, I'm afraid you won't have a chance to show off your attack methods." Quote, even though it is known that the horizontal gun is equipped with a weapon system, as far as Tony, a weapon expert, it seems that since he hasn't even discovered it, it shouldn't be a powerful thing, so he is still confident. Give to Mark's horizontal cannon. Let's shoot it. If the other party has let you, how can you live up to my father's goodwill? As long as you don't hit the key, you can come casually. If you are injured, there is a dormant cabin, and any injury can be recovered. Hearing Mark's instructions, the two eyes of Hengpao flashed red and opened his own combat mode. NT operating all-round attack unit is on. I saw the back of the horizontal gun, the wing-like mechanism that Tony had ridiculed just now as a useless ornament, and it was all scattered, floating around the huge amounts of the body in the horizontal gun, and the tip began to condense energy, turning into one by one in the night. All of the light spots were aimed at Tony's position. Ah, is it too late for me to take back what I said? When Tony looked at the floating cannons in front of him with their muzzles, he suddenly understood what Mark meant by hiding. You can call hiding. You are beyond the current era weapons are shaped, okay. What do you mean? Mark smiled and looked at Tony, who was already tensed by the floating gun, as if he could see Tony's bitter old face underneath through the mask of the battle armor. Horizontal gun, open fire. Zir, boom. Dozens of energy cannons, following Mark's order, began to attack Tony. No matter how much Tony dodges, the floating cannons around the horizontal cannon can accurately lock Tony's position and make precise strokes, which makes you scared. Tony in the midst of the gunfire was moving or not. Hey, the essence of the entire human aiming system has been stuffed into this floating gun design. As long as you are within the range, you don't want to run. Mark said triumphantly. I surrender. Sure enough, after Mark finished saying this, he already knew that he had no chance of winning with this set of Mark number 4 Tony, and he gave up on the spot. Father, you are really keeping your promise. Saying that the battle is ended quickly is really a quick end to the battle. You surrendered without a shot. Mark joked with no face to Tony. HMPH, according to your boy's style of play, do I still have a chance to shoot? Stop talking nonsense. Where is the thing that you just said can help me? Take it out quickly. It's the mule that came out of the horse. Anyway, I don't lose face in front of Mark 1 or 2 times. As a father's morals, if you want to pick it up, you have to find a broom. If you don't pick it up with your hands, Tony doesn't want it, so he just rubbed it cheeky. Seeing Tony's really shameless look, Mark teased Tony that the pleasure he got from him was not so strong. He curled his lips in disappointment, and he still took out a shape and file size from his pocket and macarons. The little things that looked alike appeared in front of Tony and Pepper. This is my third invention. I named it Accelerated World. Accelerate the world. Is this invention the same as the acceleration function in the virtual laboratory, the ability to overclock the brain? I have seen the magic of the virtual laboratory, and Mark understood the principle, and heard about this new invention after his name. Tony immediately had an association. Bingo. The answer is correct. In fact, this is the product made after castration of the function components that can be used for virtual stealth on the virtual host. However, unlike acceleration in virtual reality, overclocking the brain in real space will cause huge amounts of stress to the body, and may even cause irreversible damage. So I added a lot of restrictions and barriers to entry. In addition, this is the Christmas gift I intend to give you, but as I said earlier, you can choose one of the 3 things, and it's up to you. Decide it for yourself. One more thing, the acceleration world can be carried into your battlesuit helmet as a plug-in module. With the protection of the battlesuit, you can use its acceleration function with confidence. Quote, "No need to choose, that's it. Since you have said that it is a specially designed Christmas gift for me, then I don't have to worry about it. But I also like the other 2 things. The old rules are that you make a price and we hand it over. How about one-handed delivery of the money? Deal." When it comes to money, and the money earned from Tony, Mark's eyes immediately light up. "Okay, you drool. Tell me how this thing connects to Mark IV. Tony rubbed Mark's head and urged. "Okay, you look like this, twist it from the middle, it becomes 2 halves. When I designed it with a magnetic interface, you only need to put it in the helmet facing the temple." Tony took the acceleration world from Mark's hands like a robbery, took off his helmet and installed it in. "Okay, I forgot to say that our actual battle is a 3-game 2-win system. Just now the first game was to take care of your face and let you. Now I'm going to be serious, let Hangpao play quickly, let's do it again. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more."